Andrew and Aidan lowered their hands beside them, waiting for Sean's response. The poor bastard had no idea he was just a breath away from eternal sleep. Sean scoffed. "You forgot she is actually my sister now," he retorted with dark humor. Nathaniel shrugged. "Semantics," he rasped. Tom Hill was pretty certain that Sean Cavalier knew Nathaniel's calm disposition was a facade. "Answer him, Sean," Tom urged. The younger man threw him a side glance, his brows furrowed in a pensive frown before letting out a sigh. "When I went to your men to ask for their help with Julia, I saw you guys had a totally different priority, even Darfield. I gave her a call. She'd always been there for me all these years. When I'm in a tight spot, I call her. So when my supposed father started trying to kill my wife, I called her. She told me she would help stop him. Well, we all know how that turned out. Being allied with her gave me the power to open doors that would not normally be open to me as an outsider. Plus, she is a fashion icon in Italy. Her taste in fashion serves as a benchmark for me sometimes. There, that's my response. You can go ahead and do your worst. I've lost everything anyway," Sean delivered. "I never pegged you for a quitter," Tom Hill said. "That's disappointing, especially knowing your father's condition and his determination to fight even when it seemed hopeless." Tom quipped, glad that Nathaniel would not be turning into a murderer today. Nathaniel unclenched the fist he wasn't even aware was clenched and took a deep, calming breath, directing his gaze to Lewis and Will before saying, "Take them back, and call Captain to send someone to come and get them," Nathaniel said, his tone firm and authoritative. "Yes, boss," Lewis and Will chorused in reply. "Please, please, boss, help us plead for them to let us go. We are really sorry for taking the Bambino. We will leave, go back to Italy and disappear," one of the men said. The other one with the severed hand just looked dejected. Sean turned his back to the two. They continued to plead even as the truck moved. "What are you going to do with them? In case you don't know, most Camoras are tied by blood. Those two could be my cousins," Sean said under his breath. "They are not my problem anymore, Sean. Captain is the New York Police District Chief. They are his problems now. You can try to get them out if you can," Nathaniel replied, his voice deceptively calm but rising as he continued. "Those two trespassed on my property, shot a bank manager. It's a miracle the guy survived it. They attempted to kidnap my son, put a gun to his head, my 5-year-old son, and tried to kill him. My wife almost had an early birth. Do you know the survival rate for babies born prematurely, Sean?" Sean lowered his gaze. "I understand, but they are mere messengers. What I would like to know is what you plan to do to Anne Cavalier," Sean replied. Nathaniel watched as he clenched his jaw. "Nothing," Nathaniel replied, looking into Sean's eyes unwaveringly. Whatever his plans were, he wasn't about to share them, even if Sean seemed not to be on Anne's side. "Nothing," Sean repeated, his tone tinged with incredulity. "Why?" he added, his bemusement evident. "You do know she will not stop trying to get you back, especially after that stunt you pulled with the exposure of my family's dirty linen." Sean's voice rose in anger. "He didn't do it. I did," Tom Hill responded, making Sean look at him with widened eyes. "You did it," he repeated. "Yes, Nathaniel was raised to have some degree of honor. I am not familiar with the word. In my world, it's a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye," Tom Hill remarked, slipping his hands into his pants pockets. Sean gaped at him. "He is not even in support of it. But your sister threatened everything I stand for, and now she knows how I react to such threats," Tom Hill added. Sean's brows furrowed as he glanced from Tom Hill to Nathaniel, as if seeking some kind of confirmation. Nathaniel shrugged. The groove between Sean's eyebrows deepened. "So then, are we dealing with conflicts of interest here, Mr. Hill? Because Anne Cavalier is not the only one affected by your actions," Sean replied, choosing his words carefully. "You are my client, and so is your father. I protect my clients. You are safe, Sean, and so is your father. Your inheritance is intact, so is your money. I made certain of it. I don't like threats. That's it," Tom Hill said, turning away and starting to walk off. If the situation wasn't serious, Aidan would have laughed at Sean's expression as he watched the older man walk away. He could almost imagine some Godfather theme song playing in the background. "How the hell do you deal with that old man?" Sean asked under his breath in bemusement. "He is on my side. That's all that matters," was Nathaniel's response. Sean slowly nodded, as if gradually absorbing the idea. He then directed his gaze back to Nathaniel to meet and hold his gaze. I'm not going to sit around and let her or Henri find me first. Being a sitting duck is not my thing, Sean delivered. Nathaniel hid a smile. He'd actually thought of that, and he knew once Henri Cavalier knew as well that Anne put a hit on him, he would go after her too. So then, that would make 3 of them after Anne Cavalier. She would not know what hit her. Nathaniel was tempted to reward Sean by telling him his wife was alive, but now goes by the name Giselle. Meanwhile, earlier at the Hawthorne Guards apartment complex, Jake woke up feeling a warm, soft body nestled against him. A dull ache pulsed through his body, and his skin felt slightly hot, but it was comforting to wake up to such warmth for a change. He sighed, remembering that she had to leave for her safety. He thought about the security plans and how to get her out of the estate and back to New Jersey without exposing her to danger. Christine shifted against him, drawing his attention to their position with his body completely covering hers from behind. Stirred by a mix of desire and the need for relief from his discomfort, Jake craned his neck to the side of the bed and saw that Anita had left his medications on the nightstand, including the injections. He reached behind him for the box of pain relief injections, managed to retrieve the ampule and syringe, and drew the liquid from the vial. Holding up his arm, he searched for a vein and injected himself. He clenched his jaw to endure the sting of the needle. Fucking hate needles, he cursed silently before discarding the used needle and empty ampule into the small trash can by his bed. He did the same with the antibiotics, then settled back into position, his eyes fixed on the wall clock. After about 15 minutes, he felt beads of sweat forming on his face despite the cool room temperature, but the pain had become bearable. Christine stirred again in his arms, and he pried her legs apart with a folded knee as he reached to cup her jaw. Much later, Christine helped Jake clean up and assisted him with dressing. I wish I could whisk you away and take you home with me to nurse you back to full health, Christine said. Jake chuckled. I don't think you have any idea how well I'm treated here. I live like the boss in a big house. In a minute, my food would be brought to my door, and a maid would come to tidy up. The kitchen is just for decoration. When you're under the Hawthornes' employment, they provide everything you need to function. So by the end of the day, you wouldn't have an excuse not to do your job. Jake quipped. Christine grinned. I'm almost jealous. I'd be fat and lazy living here with you, she joked, leaning against his tall, sturdy frame and tilting her face up to look into his eyes. If I promise not to let you get lazy, would you come back? He asked. Christine blinked, and Jake watched as the playful gleam in her eyes disappeared, replaced by intense scrutiny. You want me to come back? She asked, her voice low and almost a whisper. I think I already said I love having you around, he replied with a lopsided grin. That was before, you know, she said, giving him an awkward smile. Yeah, well, you had to tell me eventually. I would hate to hear elsewhere that you got married, he replied, holding her gaze. He watched as she bit her lower lip, her eyes darting as if considering something deeply. Jake could almost see the wheels turning in her head. If I stay here with you for the duration needed for the will to take effect, would you agree to marry me, Jake? Would you do that? Live here with me just to get your hands on your inheritance? Jake probed, his brows furrowed, his eyes widening in surprise. I can't let him make me homeless, Jake, and I really, really like you, she replied fervently. Holding her gaze, Jake pondered yet again about his hesitation to go through with Christine's plan. He clearly liked her and wouldn't mind playing the role of her husband, especially since he'd been craving companionship and the loving embrace of a woman lately, even if just temporarily. So why couldn't he bring himself to accept it? Yes, he didn't want a sham marriage, but she'd said she would accept his terms and had been dropping hints that she genuinely liked him. Why was he holding back from telling her that he didn't want a sham marriage and that they should attempt having a real one and gauge her reaction? Why was he neither pushing her away nor accepting her wholeheartedly? Jake's heart constricted as something occurred to him, and he'd never felt emotionally torn as he did right then. Is there someone else? Christine's question the day before resounded in his head. Yes, Jake said with determination. Christine's brows furrowed as she replied, Yes, what? Jake. Meanwhile, back at the concierge medical unit, Dr. Rowan and Dr. Williams deliberated over Samuel Cavalier's post-surgery report, with Aria listening in, while Dr. Sterling engaged in a discussion about hospital security with Charles. Anita was rechecking all the medical contraptions Samuel Cavalier was hooked on, ensuring he was responding as he should. She checked the intracranial pressure monitor to verify the pressure inside his skull was stable, then glanced at the electroencephalogram machine to confirm that his brain activity showed no abnormal patterns. The pulse oximeter on his finger displayed a healthy oxygen level in his blood, and the electrocardiogram machine confirmed his heart was beating regularly. Anita then checked the mechanical ventilator, confirming it was properly assisting his breathing, before reviewing the intravenous lines to ensure medications and fluids were being administered correctly. The blood pressure monitor indicated stable readings, and the temperature probe showed his body temperature was normal. Finally, she noted the urinary catheter output to confirm his kidneys were functioning well. Aria caught Anita frowning over the medical chart as she chewed the end of her pen. Aria stood up and waddled to her side. "Everything okay here? No abnormalities?" she probed with a smile. "Yeah, he is doing well for an old-timer. I truly admire his determination to live," Anita said. "A lot of unfinished business, I presume," Aria whispered, leaning close to Anita. "Speaking of abnormalities," Anita began in a whisper. "Why was he sedated before the surgery?" Aria cast a discreet look around to ensure no one was close enough to overhear. Then she said, "That was Tom's doing. I think there's some bad news they don't want the old man hearing about," she said with a nod. "Oh," Anita responded in a whisper, her voice low and her eyes wide with interest. "So then we can't let him wake up yet?" Anita probed. Aria nodded. "But you know Dr. Rowan has reversed it. He used the anesthesia to regulate the sedative, and the old man might wake up any minute," Anita warned. "Oh," Aria said under her breath, her eyes widened in dismay. "I didn't know he did that," Aria said. "What do we do if the old man wakes up?" Anita whispered urgently. "We can't let him wake up yet," Aria whispered back. They exchanged a glance before turning their eyes to Charles, who was still talking with Dr. Sterling. The medicine rack was directly behind them. Dr. Sterling had her back to them, but Charles was facing their direction. Dr. Rowan and Dr. Williams were bent over medical reports in a corner, discussing whether to do a second surgery before chemotherapy. As if by a stroke of bad luck, a low groan came from the bed. Aria's heart skipped a beat as Anita flinched, her eyes widening in horror. "Aria!" she hissed through gritted teeth. Aria looked at Charles again, who seemed to sense their gaze. Aria guessed he must have picked up on their agitation. She gestured wildly towards Samuel Cavalier and used sign language to indicate that the old man was waking up and they needed a distraction. Charles blinked once, lowered his gaze at Dr. Sterling, reached up to cup her face, and lowered his head to kiss her. Aria and Anita froze, covering their mouths in shock before realizing that that was the distraction. Aria skittered to the medicine cabinet, found a light sedative, quickly drew the liquid from the vial into a syringe, and hurried to the old man's side. Samuel Cavalier opened his eyes, looking straight at Aria as she prepared to inject him in the neck. Aria hesitated. "Aria," Anita urged through gritted teeth, her voice low and urgent. "Hurry up or Charles is going to kiss Dr. Sterling to death," she added under her breath in a sing-song tone. Dr. Williams and Dr. Rowan straightened and started to turn around, still talking. Tom Hill entered the concierge medical unit and immediately sensed that something was underway. Anita looked as if she had constipation, standing close to Dr. Hawthorne, who was beside Samuel Cavalier's bedside. The doctors had clearly been busy with the old man, judging by his bandaged head. Then there was Charles, ignoring all kinds of public decency. Why was he kissing Dr. Sterling in the middle of the medical unit? Tom didn't even know the doctor was involved with the ex-Marine. Anita cast a wide-eyed look at him and gestured wildly for him to stop and hold still, making him realize all that was happening might actually be for a reason. Anita's gaze widened further as she saw Dr. Williams and Dr. Rowan leaving their positions to turn around. Aria, bending over Samuel Cavalier, felt like some kind of psychopath trying to subdue a victim, especially when she smiled down at the older man, cupped the side of his face, and said, "Rest now," as she injected him with the sedative. The older man made to speak, but then his eyes fluttered shut as he submitted to unconsciousness again. "Aria, any time now," Anita said through gritted teeth. Aria stepped back from the bed and came to a stop as she saw Dr. Rowan and Dr. Williams turn around, and Tom was right at the entrance of the unit. Anita cleared her throat loudly. Hem!" somewhat jolting Charles into stopping his kiss with Dr. Sterling. The other woman looked dazed, her eyes fluttering, and she was unsteady on her feet. Charles darted his gaze to Dr. Hawthorne and Anita. The two flashed him a broad grin that looked like a grimace. "What? Why?" Dr. Sterling said under her breath, evidently stunned. "I'm so sorry. I have no idea what got over me," Charles quickly replied in a low, husky tone as the woman looked up, peering into his eyes. There was a hint of vulnerability in her brown eyes that made him feel like a bastard. "Oh, Tom, come. Let's tell you our findings," Dr. Williams called out upon seeing Tom at the entrance of the unit, oblivious to what had happened. Aria passed the syringe and vial to Anita, who promptly pocketed them in her nurse's apron before hurrying away straight towards Tom. Tom hid a grin, wondering what the two goody two-shoes had gone and done. "Dr. Sterling, Dr. Hawthorne, wanna join the table?" Dr. Rowan called hesitantly, probably wondering why the two women were standing in their spots as if they'd turned into pillars of salt. "Coming," Dr. Sterling responded in a high-pitched tone before turning away from Charles and heading towards the other men. Aria nodded, still plastering on a smile, certain she looked utterly suspicious. "Miss Anita?" Dr. Williams called. "Be right back," Anita said over her shoulder, not looking back as she walked past Tom. "Good morrow, Mr. Hill," Anita croaked and flashed a smile. Tom lowered his gaze, hiding a laugh. If that wasn't a total giveaway, he couldn't tell what it was. Anita had always had a knack for theatrics. He could almost hear her let out a loud exhalation as she got outside the unit. "Amateurs," Tom Hill said under his breath, chuckling. Tom Hill walked up to the doctors and took a seat beside the silent Dr. Sterling. Dr. Hawthorne joined them, choosing the seat next to Tom, which he felt was intentional. He glanced at her briefly before looking down at her clasped hands resting on her lap, noticing that she started to shake her legs as if unsettled. Leaning closer, he whispered, "Everything okay, Dr. Hawthorne?" Aria glanced at him with a searching look. "Yeah, why?" she replied, a bit too quickly. Tom recalled when he'd been unsure of Dr. Hawthorne's character and felt pleased he had trusted her, proud of his discernment. "All right," he said, giving her a warm smile before turning his attention to the doctors. Anita returned shortly and sat beside Aria. The two exchanged glances. "We've resected the majority of the glioma and will allow the patient a few days to recover before attempting further excision. There's one particular lesion in the medial temporal lobe, very close to the hippocampus, which is critical for memory formation and retrieval. The problem is that operating in that area could potentially impair his memory," Dr. Rowan explained. Aria leaned forward, furrowing her brows in concentration as she picked up the MRI scan and started to study it, silently drawing her own conclusions while Rowan continued his report. "How much of his memory are we talking about?" Tom asked, leaning over the table with keen interest. "That's hard to say," Dr. Rowan replied. "He might retain fragments or lose his memory entirely." Aria mused aloud, answering Tom's question. "It all depends on the success of the surgery. And here," she pointed to Broca's area in the frontal lobe, "is another sizable tumor. If we excise it, he might lose the ability to speak or need extensive speech therapy to relearn how to communicate," she added. Tom noticed how Dr. Rowan immediately gave Aria his full attention, evidently acknowledging her expertise in the matter. "Have you done anything like this before?" Tom Hill asked, directing the question at Dr. Rowan. "Yes, we have. This is what we do, what Evergreen Memorial is famous for, taking on extremely challenging cases. But Dr. Hawthorne is more daring than I or any of us," Rowan said sheepishly, a hint of pride in his voice. "Please pay him no mind. He is my mentor, and he is supposed to say that," Aria quipped, making everyone chuckle. "So, is he going to make it?" Sean asked from behind Aria, drawing everyone's attention. Aria craned her neck to look back, seeing that Sean was back with Nathaniel, Aidan, and Andrew. Her heart fluttered as her eyes met Nathaniel's, the corner of his lips curved in a subtle smile, his eyes burrowing into hers. "Well, he would if we all agreed to let him," Dr. Rowan fired back. Tom Hill watched as Sean's brows furrowed at the reply. "You've lost me," Sean replied, giving the other man a penetrating gaze. Before Rowan could respond, Nathaniel said, "The old man is safe here. I can assure you there will not be any unexpected encounters here," he assured him. Rowan shut his mouth but still cast a suspicious look at Sean, who looked at Nathaniel with a pensive frown. Tom silently noted that Nathaniel had made it seem as if the doctor was talking about the hospital attack when it was clear Rowan was talking about the sedation. Tom blinked, pondering why the doctor had sounded as if he was accusing Sean. Did the man think Sean had given the sedative to his father? He sat back in his seat with a satisfied smile. "The first surgery was a success, and I agree with Dr. Rowan and Dr. Williams' decision to perform a second surgery before chemotherapy, targeting the larger and more difficult but still accessible tumor while we complete the treatment with chemotherapy," Arya was saying when Sean interrupted. "Before chemotherapy, can we employ Nathaniel's suggestion of using the farmer Hawthorne-developed herbal drug to tackle the shrinkage?" Sean said, holding his hand to his side as he settled into a seat. "Experimental botanical-based drug," Nathaniel corrected. All the doctors in the room directed their gazes at him, silently imploring him to elaborate. Arya wondered why Nathaniel hadn't mentioned it to her before. She was aware of the new botanical-based cancer drug he had wanted her to use on him, but she had refused, wanting more tests done before taking such a risk. She didn't realize he had advanced it so far. A swell of pride rippled through her, though she still wondered why he hadn't discussed it with her. "The drug was developed based on the significant efficacy of our latest product. We created a derivative compound tailored for brain tumors, engineered to traverse the blood-brain barrier. It's an advanced botanical-based pharmaceutical that targets immune function compromised by oncogenic factors, bolstering the body's defenses and enhancing immune surveillance to mitigate tumor progression. We've completed preclinical research and filed an investigational new drug application for clinical trials," Nathaniel explained. "It's still in the testing stage," he quickly added, meeting Arya's gaze. "My father agreed to be part of the clinical trials," Sean interjected, clearly not wanting to give the doctors room to reject the idea. "I was there." "He did volunteer," Tom Hill added. "I've heard about your herbal-based drug." "It's starting to make waves in the industry," Rowan said, a hint of respect in his voice. Nathaniel didn't quite know how to feel about that, given that he had ventured into drug development to prove he could surpass Arya's surgeon mentor. He nodded gingerly in acknowledgement. "We've stored it for use, and our patients are giving positive feedback, although I'm still worried there might be consequences. Nathaniel, or should I say Farmer Hawthorne, has taken a step many pharmaceutical companies would avoid just to profit off people. They will come after you," Dr. Williams said jokingly, but Nathaniel knew what he meant. "Let them," Tom Hill said. Sean frowned at the older man. "You should keep an eye on Mr. Hill," he whispered to Nathaniel, who chuckled despite himself. "We'll review the reports on the drug and see if it can help in this case, while we plan the next surgery," Rowan said, carefully choosing his words as he held Arya's gaze, waiting for her to object or agree. When she simply nodded, he added, "But you must understand, Mr. Cavalier, that you'll need to sign some documents first, an informed consent form to ensure you understand the risks and benefits, a clinical trial agreement outlining the terms of participation, a confidentiality agreement to protect proprietary information, an IRB approval confirmation, and an insurance waiver or liability release. Of course. Thank you all for doing this. And an even bigger thank you to you, Nathaniel. I understand why you're doing this despite everything, and I appreciate it," Sean said solemnly. "We will do our very best to ensure he survives this," Nathaniel replied. "It's settled then," Dr. Rowan said, leaning back. "We'll give him 2 weeks to recover," he began, but Nathaniel interrupted. "Make it 1 week. Then we'll start the drug administration," Nathaniel said firmly. Rowan nodded cautiously. "All right," he agreed, meeting Arya's gaze before adding, "I suppose we can manage it within a week." Arya and Dr. Williams nodded. "A week is fine for re-evaluation," Arya confirmed. "Good," Sean said, lowering his gaze, though Tom noticed the cold gleam in his eyes. "Babe, a word," Nathaniel urged, helping Arya up and interlocking their fingers as he led her away. Aidan and Andrew moved automatically to follow Nathaniel and Dr. Hawthorne. Charles started to follow as well, but was stopped by Dr. Sterling. He paused at the entrance to the medical unit, while Aidan and Andrew looked back with curiosity. "Well, if it isn't the consequences of my actions," Charles muttered under his breath before turning to face the approaching doctor, causing Aidan and Andrew to frown in confusion. Meanwhile, back at the Hawthorne Guards complex, Jake was about to answer Christine when a loud knock at the front door interrupted him. "Excuse me," Jake said, hurrying away and trying to set aside his introspective thoughts. As he made his way to the door, Julia's voice from the Military Park warehouse echoed in his mind. "Wait for me. Please, Jake. For more experiments." Julia's whispered plea, full of emotion, reverberated in his head. "Experiments, Jules," he had teased. "We'll see," he'd replied. Reflecting on it now, he hadn't made a firm promise, but he had given her something to anticipate. Perhaps it was time to talk with Jaden. Maybe he could observe Giselle from a distance to see how she was coping, which might help him manage the guilt, or whatever it was that was preventing him from wanting to move on. He felt they had some sort of unfinished business, and resolving that might help him assist Christine. The persistent knocking jolted him out of his thoughts. "I'm coming, Jesus!" he called out with irritation. Opening the door, he found it was Lewis. "Why the hell did you lock the door? You could have been dead in there!" Lewis exclaimed. "Well, I'm not," Jake replied slowly, then realized they might not know Christine was still there. He glanced over his shoulder and signaled for the men to step back from the doorway. They complied with furrowed brows. Jake stepped outside, closed the door, and moved down the hallway until he felt it was safe to speak. "Christine stayed the night," he whispered to them. Understanding dawned on their faces. "Oh," they responded. Jake grinned. "Maybe I should get injured more often, don't you think?" he joked. Lewis and Will chuckled and shook their heads. "I thought Anton was supposed to take her back," Will said quietly. "I don't know. I left her at the party, went to the meeting, and then returned here with Aidan and Andrew, only to find her still here," Jake explained. "I think Anton got drunk. I saw him at breakfast with Miss Jonas, who was making him her famous hangover remedy," Lewis said with a grin. "That explains why she came back here," Jake replied. "Don't worry, I'll tell him to pick her up before we head to the briefing," Lewis said. "Briefing?" Jake asked, his brows furrowing. "You missed quite a bit this morning. We just came back from the security post after returning those guys who tried to kidnap Liam. The captain is sending his men to retrieve them," Will said. "What did I miss?" Jake asked, concerned. "Sean narrowly escaping death, for one. It turns out he isn't the double-crossing rat we'd thought," Lewis quipped. "Boss was going to dump him in the middle of the ocean. Cold, I tell you," Will added. Jake glared at the two of them. "You realize I'm not dead, right? You could have come and gotten me," Jake said. He couldn't believe they'd let him miss that. "Yeah, right, and face Dr. Hawthorne's wrath? Not a chance," Lewis retorted. "So Sean and Samuel Cavalier are here?" Jake asked. "Yeah, they're all in the northern region with Dr. Rowan, Dr. Williams, Dr. Sterling, Dr. Hawthorne, Ms. Anita, the boss, and Tom. The whole team," Will confirmed. "What's the briefing about?" Jake asked. "We're going after Henry," Will replied. Jake turned and headed back towards his door. "Can you find Anton for me, Lewis?" "Tell him Miss Powell would like to go home now," Jake said over his shoulder. "Okay," Lewis replied, a bit perplexed by Jake's request. "Will, you'll be taking me to the boss," Jake added. "No way, you're staying in bed, Jake," Lewis insisted. "Want to come and make me?" Jake challenged, raising an eyebrow. Lewis responded with a string of expletives. Will looked from Jake to Lewis with an amused smile playing on his lips. "You are wounded. I will give you a beat down with one hand held to my back," Lewis retorted before turning to walk away. "Where are you going? Shouldn't we at least try out your overactive imagination?" Jake taunted. "Asshole," came Lewis's response as he kept walking. "I'll get Anton for Miss Powell. I hope she knows you are a lunatic," he added. Jake glared at his retreating back. Leaving Will waiting, Jake headed back inside the apartment and saw that Christine was pacing with her luggage packed in the middle of the room. "Babe," he called, making her pause to cast him an anxious gaze, a hopeful gleam in her eyes. "Lewis has gone to help me fetch Anton. Sorry, he couldn't take you back to New Jersey yesterday. I found out he had a little too much fun at the party. He will be here soon to take you back home. But I was wondering if you would like breakfast before you leave. I'm going to have it brought here, and I can't stay, though. There's a meeting I do not want to miss, Jake said, holding her gaze and watching as her nervous agitation gradually transformed into confusion as she furrowed her brows. We were in the middle of a discussion, remember? You were telling me yes, and I don't quite know what the yes was for. Was the yes for the marriage proposal, Jake? She said, giving him a hopeful, searching gaze. Then, as if realizing the need for clarity, she quickly added, business marriage proposal. She tried to smile at him, but she didn't quite succeed. Jake thought her attempt seemed more like a grimace. I'm sorry, I was a bit in my head at the time, Jake replied. Oh, Christine said, somewhat recoiling, disappointment etching on her face. I see. Thank you for a wonderful night. And, I think I should decline the breakfast. I don't really like breakfast. I will eat when I get home. How long do you think it, would take Anton to get here? She started to say, rambling on as she grabbed onto her luggage handle with her face lowered and her eyes downcast. Jake closed the distance between them and reached out to touch her, but she flinched and stepped back, shaking her head. She then glanced at his face with a faint smile and whispered, No, Jake, I should go. Jake sighed, hating to see her hurting. He remembered what Andrew had said and smiled to himself, shaking his head. They hadn't even entered into the marriage, and she was already like this. Christine headed to the exit, dragging her luggage with her. Christine, Jake called, making her stop, but she didn't turn around. Look at me, Jake commanded. Christine slowly turned around, her eyes lowered but tears visible. Look at me, he repeated, and she raised her face to meet his gaze. If I marry you, would we continue to be intimate and remain friends? Jake asked. Christine blinked. If you want, she replied softly. And if we do you think after a few months you could just turn your back on me and walk away? He asked, noting how her lips trembled. Yes, she replied, her eyelids fluttering. Liar, Jake said, stepping closer to stand about a foot away from her. We shouldn't talk about this anymore, Jake. I'm sorry I brought it up, she said, giving him a searching gaze. Babe, I need you to listen because this is a rather big deal for me. I grew up in an abusive home. I'm half a madman and I'm a bodyguard. Every time I walk out that door might be my last. If I'm ever going to marry, I want it to be forever, Christine, until I leave and never return. If I agree to do this with you, that would become part of my history, that I was married to Christine Powell and divorced her, Jake was saying. Jake, Christine began to interrupt, but he held up his hand to stop her before gently cupping her jaw. Give me 2 weeks, and I will let you know if I can go on with your plan, but with a slight change, a change I hope you will agree to. Your grandfather gave you until the end of the month, so if I can't do it for some reason, we will speak with Mr. Hill to help us find a loophole. Christine's brows furrowed. A loophole? She repeated. Mr. Hill is a very crafty lawyer. He might find a solution that doesn't require you marrying anyone. I will speak with him with your permission, just in case, Jake said. Christine's eyes darted before she slowly nodded. Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, considering we don't know for certain if I will still be alive by next week, do you think you could give me a goodbye kiss? He grinned and watched as she gave him a searching gaze. I'm trying to be real with you, Christine. Don't hate me for it, Jake added. Christine let out a sigh. Jake moved closer. When she didn't draw back, he lowered his head and kissed her. Miss Jonas makes the best breakfast combos. Are you sure you don't want some, babe? He whispered against her lips. Christine cupped the back of his head, shut her eyes, and deepened the kiss. Jake groaned into her mouth. Meanwhile, back at the concierge medical unit, Dr. Sterling approached Charles, looking up at the tall, hunky man with keen scrutiny. Do you want to, talk about the, kiss? She asked, gesturing to her lips and nervously fidgeting as she glanced at him. It was impulsive, ma'am. I'm so sorry, Charles replied, trying to maintain a respectful stance. Yeah, you, said that before, she replied, swallowing softly and looking quite uncomfortable. You look beautiful in, that dress, Charles said, and then mentally cursed as she lowered her gaze to her doctor's robe. Really, you idiot, he thought to himself. Determined to remedy that error, he added, You have soft lips, and shut his eyes, emitting a low growl when he realized what he'd said out loud. But when he opened them, Dr. Sterling was smiling at him. Okay, good, that's a good sign. Maybe she didn't entirely hate the kiss, he thought to himself. The kiss may have been intended as a distraction, but if he was being honest with himself, it wasn't bad at all. In fact, he might even say he found it quite nice. Well, thank you. I thought you were a good kisser too, she replied. Thank you, he said. When he didn't say more, she asked, would you, like to grab dinner sometime when you're off duty? Charles blinked. Was she asking him out? He tilted his head and said, Dr. Sterling, I don't know if Andrew briefed you yet, but you are to remain here along with the other doctors to assist Dr. Hawthorne and Dr. Rowan. He might not know the pretty doctor well, but he wouldn't want her putting herself in danger like that. Everyone associated with the Hawthornes has to be careful now. Yes, I was told. The benefits are pretty impressive to ignore, she quipped. Charles nodded in relief. But I'm sure we can have picnics here. It's quite a big estate. I had no idea something like this existed in New York, she added. Yeah, the landscaping can be pretty deceptive, Charles replied with a smirk. So, want to hang out sometime? She asked again. Charles gave her a broad smile and nodded. Sure, I must warn you though, I'm always working. But since we're in the same compound, if you don't mind, I can drop by any time and take you for a picnic as you suggested, he replied. Dr. Sterling beamed at him and subtly swayed like a little girl. Charles held back a chuckle. See you around, Doctor, he said with a polite nod and walked away. Outside, he wasn't surprised to see Andrew and Aidan waiting for him. What was that about? Andrew asked with a concerned frown. Charles let out a sigh. I kissed her, he replied, and the two gaped at him. He chuckled. You did what? How? When? Aidan probed comically. Charles looked over his shoulder, making sure no one was close by, and told them about the scene with Dr. Hawthorne and Anita. What were they doing, though? Andrew asked, furrowing his brows. About 50 meters away from the concierge medical unit, Nathaniel stopped to face Arya, looking into her eyes as he drew her close until her baby bump was touching him. He cupped her face and said, So what was that about between your boyfriend and Sean Cavalier? Arya's eyes widened as she repeated, My boyfriend? Nathaniel arched an eyebrow at her before saying, Sebastian, mimicking Arya's voice. She burst out laughing, then smacked him on the chest. Nathaniel held back a laugh, pretending to glower at her. Why are you like this? She said. Like what? He replied with acute seriousness. Possessive? Arya quipped. I think you mean protective, he corrected. Arya beamed at him. Don't worry, I don't dislike the attitude 100% of the time, she quipped, batting her eyelashes at him. Nathaniel chuckled, lowering his head to press a kiss on her lips. So what's up with him? Nathaniel probed. He thinks Sean was responsible for the sedative given to Samuel Cavalier, Arya supplied. Oh, Nathaniel responded as the corner of his mouth tweaked into a smile. Don't smile. I feel really bad for deceiving him like that, and to make matters worse, she started to say, then paused to drop her voice into a whisper. Samuel Cavalier woke up earlier, and I had to inject him with a sedative again. I dragged Anita into it, and Charles had to kiss Dr. Sterling for distraction. It was a big domino mess, she said in an agitated whisper. Wait, what? Nathaniel replied before bursting into hearty laughter. Arya glowered at him for his reaction and smacked him again. Oh, my poor little criminal, Nathaniel teased. Nathan? Arya protested, stomping her feet. Nathaniel cupped her face, laughing as he peppered kisses on her face. Back at the Hawthorne household, Lewis, having conveyed Jake's message to Anton, lingered in the kitchen for a quick bite. On his way to the concierge medical unit, he overheard the twins' voices in the foyer. Mr. Blackwood, Sterndale, and Miss Morris were in the living room, with Miss Everly and Miss Bella. He assumed Liam and Owen should be with them. We can still order it if you want, Owen was saying. I don't know, I wouldn't want to cause any more problems, Liam replied. Lewis walked from the kitchen to the foyer and saw the twins sitting on the stairs landing, eating cookies and chatting. He smiled, thinking they were probably bored with the adults. Laughter and conversation spilled from the living room. 2 guards were stationed by the foyer and back doors, obviously to keep the boys inside. We can ask Uncle Andrew if we can still make the order, Owen countered with a determined frown. If the gift is supposed to be for Aunt Anita, Then it won't be a surprise anymore if we ask Uncle Andrew, Liam explained. Maybe Uncle Jake can help us, Owen suggested. Uncle Jake has been busy with his girlfriend since yesterday. And did you notice that he walks funny now? Liam said with a frown. Owen shrugged. I'm sure he is fine. He danced with his date. Dancing is hard. And humiliating, he said, nodding knowingly. Maybe I can help, Lewis interrupted, catching the twins' attention. Hello, Uncle Lewis. Owen greeted him with a polite smile. Good afternoon, Uncle Lewis, Liam added. Hello to you too. So what do you need and how can I help? Lewis asked, joining them to sit on the stairs. We want to buy gifts for Uncle Andrew and Aunt Anita and Uncle Alex and Aunt Anna, but we can't go out, so we need to order online, and we're not sure if we can do that, Owen explained. And we don't know what the ladies would want, Liam added. He then paused as if pondering the issue, then continued. Can we buy bracelets, like gold bracelets? I saw a guy give a lady one in a movie, and she was pretty happy about it. Lewis grinned. I bet she was. Ladies love jewelry as gifts, but it can be pretty expensive, he replied. Oh, I've got money, Liam said. Lewis chuckled, thinking of course, but gaped when Liam brought out a whole lot of $100 bills. Where did you get all that money from, Liam? Lewis asked, frowning as he remembered who he was talking to, but still he wasn't expecting him to have this much cash. He got it from tips and bribes mostly, Owen said, with Liam nodding. Lewis chuckled. That's pretty impressive, but if we're buying online, we'll need a credit card, Lewis said. Don't worry, we can use mine. I should probably be hunting for gifts for the couples myself, he added. The boys beamed at him. Thank you, Uncle Lewis, but we have a credit card too, Owen said, pulling out a platinum card from his pocket. Of course you do, Lewis said, chuckling. All right, come on. Let's get my laptop, and we can search for gifts together. Holding the two by the hands, Lewis led them into the living room to let everyone know the twins were with him. As they approached the back door, 2 Hawthorne guards flanked them, and they exited the building, heading towards the guards' quarters. Jake, who had just said goodbye to Christine and watched the helicopter depart from the helipad atop the Hawthorne building, looked down to see Lewis leaving with Liam and Owen. Oi! He called, making them stop and look up. He grinned as the boys waved, beaming with smiles. Are you still busy with your girlfriend, Uncle Jake? Liam called out. Am I what? Jake called back, straining to hear him. When Liam tried again, Jake's brows furrowed. Hold on, I'm coming down, he yelled, gesturing for them to wait. Jake made his way down the building, through the foyer and out the back door, walking as fast as he could to join Lewis, the twins, and the guards. Shouldn't you be in bed? One of the guards questioned. Lewis scoffed. Shut up, Adam, Jake replied, and shot Lewis an irritated glance. Liam and Owen gasped, looking up at the other guard to see if he would be offended. So you two, what were you saying? Jake asked, distracting them. I asked if you were done entertaining your girlfriend, Liam repeated. Jake chuckled. Well, yes, I am. Why? He replied. Why are you walking funny, Uncle Jake? Owen asked with a puzzled frown. Lewis replied, before Jake could, that's because he's wounded but still refuses to take a break. Oh, both Liam and Owen exclaimed with worried frowns. I'm fine, I just really hate being idle, Jake replied, casting a glare at Lewis. He knew Lewis meant well, but he was beginning to get on his nerves. What kind of wound is it? Can you show us? How did you get wounded, Uncle Jake? Is it terribly painful? Liam probed with concern. Did Mum treat you, Uncle Jake? Owen asked. Boys, I promise I am fine. No need to worry, and yes, your mum treated me, Jake said, sidestepping the string of questions. The two gingerly nodded. Now tell me what you guys are up to. Liam explained about the gifts, and Owen added, Uncle Lewis is going to help us. Jake nodded. Yeah, Uncle Lewis can be a pain sometimes, but his heart is in a good place, Jake said. The twins gasped and looked at Lewis, waiting for his response. Idiot, Lewis muttered. Liam and Owen giggled, obviously enjoying the drama. The sound of a helicopter overhead interrupted the exchange. Jake frowned, mentally calculating how long Anton had been gone with Christine, thinking it was definitely too fast for him to be back. He exchanged a glance with Lewis and Adam, and each of them picked up one of the twins, with Lewis carrying Owen. Go on, I'll join you. I want to order gifts for Uncle Andrew too, Jake said. Okay, the twins replied gingerly, sensing the sudden shift in mood. Lewis, Adam, and the third guard hurried away towards the Hawthorne guards' quarters, knowing the boys would suspect something was amiss if they were returned to the house. Jake waited for them to be far away enough before drawing out his gun. Turning around to face the Hawthorne building, he saw uniformed guards swarming the yard with quick precision. He walked towards the front of the building and saw the helicopter hovering high above the front yard. He then saw a masked man yank out a tied and blindfolded blonde woman and push her out of the helicopter. Jake's heart stopped at the sight. He knew there was only one blonde the Comoras would deem worthy of such an ending. Julia. He took out his gun and with superhuman strength sprinted towards the body falling from the helicopter. Arya, laughing at Nathaniel teasing her about being a criminal now, cupped his jaw to peer into his eyes. The warm greyish hue made her melt inside like butter as she held his gaze, smiling and kissed him on the lips. You made me proud in there with your inventions. You are a phenomenal being, Nathaniel Hawthorne, she said in a low, soft voice against his lips. Nathaniel blinked, the compliment catching him unawares as the corners of his mouth tweaked into a smile. Thanks, baby, he rasped, his heart swelling with emotion. The compliment hit him harder than he expected, making his brows furrow as he tried to rationalize it in his head. You know I'm proud of you too, right? He added. Don't do that, don't bring me into this. This is about you. Let me gush over my man without you bringing up something random, she quipped. Nathaniel threw back his head, laughing. How many times must I tell you, madam, to never put down my woman? He rasped, feigning offense. My apologies, sir, Arya quipped, smiling as she drew his lower lip into her mouth with her teeth, peering lovingly into his eyes. You're incredibly fierce when you defend your woman, she whispered. You should see her protecting me. She is twice as fierce, he replied, his eyes darkening with feelings. Arya beamed at him. Why didn't you tell me, though? Why didn't you tell me about the new drugs you were working on? She asked as he wrapped her in a hug. It's a habit of mine to make sure something is viable before announcing it. I promise I'll do better, he rasped, pressing a kiss on the crown of her head. Arya drew back to smile into his face. Nathaniel realized the answer to his earlier introspection. Arya's compliment affected him deeply because he was always sensitive to her opinion of him. He always wanted to be worthy of her, wanting her to always know that he was the best option for her and that when she called him hers, he would be utterly worth it. It was daunting to feel such pressure to be worthy of her, but she meant the world to him, and he always wanted to mean the same to her. Now he knew he did. I love you, she said to him out of nowhere, making his heart flutter with feelings. Nathaniel took her hand, raised it to his lips to press a kiss on her palm, and then pressed the open palm to his heart. What I just heard was, I want more babies, Nathan, he quipped, making her burst out laughing. And I will gladly oblige, Mrs. Hawthorne, all day, every damn day. Love you more, beautiful, he rasped, lowering his head to kiss her. A distinct but faint sound of helicopter blades resounding in the air caught Nathaniel's attention. Discreetly looking in the direction of the concierge medical unit, he saw Andrew on the phone with Aidan and Charles gathering around him. He immediately sensed something was amiss. Come now, let me take you back to your nerdy friends, he quipped, making her chuckle as he shepherded her back to the unit. Nathaniel waited by the entrance with his hands in his pockets, watching as Arya joined the other doctors before turning away to walk towards Andrew and the group. As soon as Andrew saw him approaching, he ended the call. Boss, he said. Nathaniel held his gaze and asked, what happened? A helicopter dropped a body in front of the house, Andrew replied gingerly. Nathaniel tensed up, his heartbeat picking up speed. Who was it? Nathaniel probed as he turned around, heading to the cart. Jake is on it, Andrew replied. Jake? Shouldn't he be in bed? Nathaniel retorted. Andrew and Aidan flanked him. Charles stayed behind, gesturing to the other guards to stay alert. About 20 Hawthorne bodyguards surrounded the medical unit. Tom Hill came out of the medical unit just in time to see Nathaniel getting in the cart with Aidan and Andrew. What happened? Tom asked Charles. The fucking Comoras are at it again. They just dropped a body in the compound, Charles replied. Tom Hill's heart skipped a beat as his mind went straight to his daughter Dawn. Wait! he yelled, catching Andrew's attention as he hurried to the cart and got inside, his chest heaving and jaw clenched. The tension in the air was palpable. If that bitch touched his daughter, he is going to make sure she begs to die, Tom Hill thought to himself. After taking a minute to get his emotions under control, he took out his phone and dialed her number. It rang and rang, but she didn't pick up. Damn it, pick up, girl, he thought to himself. Andrew, who was driving the cart, forced himself to focus on the pressing task and not imagine that the Camoras had managed to find someone dear to them all to hurt. Someone like his sister. He swallowed hard, silently praying that he was completely off track. Nathaniel faced forward, trying to think of whom the Camorra might use as a scapegoat to get back at him. He couldn't think of any family relative. His mind drifted through the family tree, but no one came to mind. As for Aria, both her parents were gone. His thoughts shifted to his friends, considering the Morrises and Ethan Blackwood's mother. He clenched his jaw at the thought, doubting his friends would forgive him if they lost a family member due to their association with him. About 100 meters from the house, Nathaniel saw shards of metal and body parts on the ground, indicating the helicopter had been blown up. His men, wearing masks and gloves, were quickly clearing the yard. Jake stood by a body placed on the grass, covered with white sheets, but Nathaniel could see a spill of blonde hair. With Jake standing there by the body, one particular person came to mind, Julia. Shit, Andrew muttered. He could see that the victim was blonde, but sincerely hoped it wasn't who he imagined. Otherwise, Jake was going to be pretty pissed. Tom was momentarily relieved that the victim was blonde, but then again, a lot of people dye their hair blonde these days. As they parked the car, the men spilled out and walked toward the body. The sound of an ambulance resounded as they approached. Jake turned to face them, but not before Aidan noticed the stain of blood on the back of his shirt. Early on, Jake sprinted towards the falling body, her loud scream of terror filling the air. "Bring it down! Shoot down the damn craft! Don't let them get away!" Jake yelled loud enough for everyone a mile away to hear. He aimed his gun at the craft, firing until he hit the person by the door, making them fall face first from the helicopter. A gunman appeared in the entrance of the copter and prepared to fire at him. At that moment, Jake was utterly sure he was going to be gunned down, as there was no cover for him in the open field. The man rained bullets down, but instead of the bullets riddling his body, an invisible barrier shimmered in the air, followed by a loud, deafening boom that obliterated the copter completely. Jake dove over the crumpled body, shielding it with his own as metal flew dangerously about. He could hear his heart racing, his breathing loud, and the only sound he could hear. How none of the metal hit him remained a mystery. He waited for the expected blow, but none came. Lifting himself a little, he peered at her face, shuddering as she fought to breathe. Blonde hair spilled over a masked face. Jake slowly pushed the hair aside and pulled off the mask to reveal the face. His heart pounded as if it were about to explode as he stared into a pair of blue eyes. Blood spilled from parted lips, a hint of agony etched on the pale face as the chest heaved with labored breathing before it gradually stopped. Jake drew back, his eyes lowering to the note attached to her chest. It was a list of names, clearly a hit list, with one name already ticked off. Jake sat down beside the body, his hands shaking as he fought to contain his emotions. He felt terrible for feeling relieved that it wasn't Julia. Nathaniel, Aidan, Andrew, and Tom came to stand by Jake. Andrew crouched to pull off the white sheet covering the victim's face. It wasn't Julia. It was Jessica. Nathaniel stood there, stunned for about a minute, wondering how the hell Jessica had gotten involved in this. Then Jake passed a note to him. His eyes scanned the list of names, and it made sense. Everyone who had attended the reunion was listed there, with Jessica's name ticked off. But aside from the old schoolmates, other names came afterward. Tom Hill saw Bella's name as well as Dawn's. Andrew saw his sister's name and Anita's. Every single person associated with the Hawthornes in one way or another was listed, including the Morrises and Mrs. Blackwood. Aidan noticed that the only person whose name wasn't included was Noria. Nathaniel passed the list to Andrew and took a deep, calming breath. When he opened his eyes, they met Jake's. "We can't wait," Jake said. Nathaniel nodded. "Aidan," he called. "Yes, boss," Aidan replied as he stepped forward. "Get Sean. He is going to help us with this first step, Nathaniel said. On it, Aidan said and walked away, heading to the cart. Nathaniel lowered his gaze to Jessica's lifeless body, still wondering how she got involved. The girl was evil incarnate, but she didn't deserve to go like this. It was almost karma. He turned away as the ambulance backed up to the body and the paramedics hurried to it. Come with me, Jake. If I can't make you rest, I might as well keep an eye on you, Nathaniel said. Jake let out a sigh as he fell in step with Andrew, Tom, and Nathaniel. Tom, do you think Dawn would like to pay us another visit? I promise this won't take more than a week, Nathaniel said, the hard, cold edge in his tone evident. Oh, she won't, even if I have to kidnap her myself, Tom said with determination. Good, Andrew, please find out if Jaden and our friend are safe, Nathaniel instructed. Yes, boss, Andrew replied. Jake felt a rush of gratitude. He took a quick glance at his watch, mentally calculating how long it would take Anton to get to New Jersey and return. He wasn't completely sure how to keep Christine safe now, except that they needed to find a quick way to end this mess before those bastards picked their next victim. Nathaniel wasn't surprised to see everyone in the foyer. Ms. Bella, Ms. Everly, Anna, Alex, and Ethan. And who was that? Ethan asked urgently. It's a woman, right? Anna questioned, agitated. I need to talk to the three of you, Anna, Alex, and Ethan, Nathaniel said, gesturing to the living room. They nodded in understanding and headed there. Tom hurried to Miss Bella to pull her aside. Nathaniel turned to Miss Everly to assure her everything was under control. But who was it? The older woman questioned with great concern. We don't know yet. The coroner will let us know as soon as they find out, Nathaniel lied, not wanting to scare the older woman. We are trying to understand what it was about. The police are on their way, he said, and it seemed to calm her. Mrs. Jonas came and urged her to follow her into the kitchen. Nathaniel's eyes scanned the room, trying to locate Owen and Liam. Miss Jonas, where are my sons? He asked. Jake answered before the older woman could. They are with Lewis, Adam, and George in our complex, and then quickly explained the hunt for gifts for the newly engaged. Good, that should keep them occupied, Nathaniel replied, heading to join his friends in the living room. Jake and Andrew followed. As soon as they entered, Nathaniel said, Sit down, Jake. Jake gladly complied, his back aching, and he suspected he'd injured himself again. Andrew closed the living room door. Ethan, Alex, and Anna focused their attention on Nathaniel. Who was it, Nate? Alex asked, his voice hesitant. Nathaniel paused for about a second before responding. Jessica, he revealed, the room filling with shocked gasps. What? Ethan whispered, barely audible as he slowly sat down. Anna covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with shock. Alex's brows knitted with concern. There's more. I need you three to sit down for this, Nathaniel suggested. Ethan's brows furrowed. Nathaniel explained the situation, and soon enough, Ethan started pacing while Anna surprisingly looked pissed. Alex listened attentively with full concentration. So that's why I think you should either return to Dubai on my jet tonight or stay here until everything is over, Nathaniel concluded. Anna glowered at him. You're asking us to abandon you and Arya when you need us the most, she questioned, sounding offended. It's only logical, Nathaniel quipped. We can't just leave Nate, Alex said. Anna is right. Nathaniel directed his gaze at Ethan, who was still pacing, sensing the eyes on him. Ethan stopped and looked in their direction. What's the plan to deal with this witch? Ethan asked. I was asking if you'd rather leave, Nathaniel quipped. Ethan looked bemused for a bit. Why the hell would I want to do that? He replied. Jake and Andrew chuckled. Were you even listening? Nathaniel questioned. I listened. I heard you say some random wannabe mafia thinks she can tackle us. I heard you all right, Ethan said, sounding offended. Okay, I guess we're going to be housemates for a bit longer then, Nathaniel quipped. Much later, Aidan brought Sean, blindfolded, into Nathaniel's home office. The other man chuckled when Aidan removed the blindfold. This is ridiculous. I'm literally in your house under your protection, Nathaniel, Sean said. Yeah, Nathaniel responded. When Sean saw Jake, the smile on his face vanished. He looked from Jake to Andrew, then back to Nathaniel. What happened? He asked. Nathaniel told him and explained the plan for the night. Sean let out a chuckle of disbelief. It sounds like you're making me and Henry bait, he said, a note of incredulity in his voice. Nathaniel folded his arms across his broad chest and said, "Don't tell me you're scared." Sean glowered at him. "I'm definitely not scared," he retorted. "Good, because this is the only way to finally convince me to let you into my house without a blindfold," Nathaniel replied. Andrew stepped out of the home office to call Jaden using a satellite phone, hoping to avoid any tracking via radio frequency or other advanced tech. However, as soon as the phone connected, strange noises began distorting the signal, making it difficult to hear Jaden's voice clearly. His heart raced as he recognized the familiar signs of potential hacks on their communications devices. The unusual signal interference and the erratic behavior of the phone were unmistakable indicators. Andrew quickly checked the phone for any unfamiliar applications or sudden reboots, but everything seemed normal. "Jaden, can you hear me?" Andrew shouted, trying to cut through the static. "I think someone's trying to intercept our call." The interference grew stronger. Andrew knew that even advanced encryption and secure protocols could be vulnerable if the attackers were sophisticated enough. The thought of potential RF jamming or signal spoofing flashed through his mind, and he regretted not conducting a more thorough security audit recently. Andrew moved to another spot, hoping to find a clearer signal, but the strange noises persisted. He knew they had to act fast. "We need to switch to the backup channel," he said, hoping Jaden could understand through the distortion. "This line isn't secure." Despite the urgency, Andrew stayed calm. "Better still, if you can hear me, get the hell out of there," he added before ending the call. Rushing back towards the home office, he heard Nathaniel say, "Aiden will go with Sean and our other guards to hunt him down and bring him here." Andrew opened the door, making Nathaniel pause. The two held each other's gaze. Andrew then said, "I think it's important we refrain from making any calls until I say it's okay." Jake sat up, immediately understanding Andrew's suggestion. Nathaniel gingerly nodded. "I'll appreciate you letting everyone know, especially Tom," Nathaniel replied, remembering he had asked the older man about Dawn and was certain he would be on the phone with his girl. Andrew cursed under his breath and left, leaving the door open. He raced to the foyer, calling out, "Mr. Hill!" One of the guards in the foyer gestured to the kitchen. Andrew raced in that direction just as Alex and Ethan peered out of the living room. "What's happening, Andrew?" Ethan called after him. Andrew yelled back, "Don't make calls!" As he rushed into the kitchen, he saw Tom and Bella on the phone. "Son of a..." Andrew let out a curse before he yelled, "End that call now!" Tom's heart skipped a beat as he quickly snatched the phone from Bella and ended the call. "What happened?" Miss Bella asked. Nothing. I'm just trying to do a security check on our communications to make sure we are not vulnerable to hacks," Andrew said, darting his eyes from Miss Bella to Tom Hill, who had gone pale. Andrew was glad he got the message. "Excuse us, honey," Tom Hill said, and crossed the room to Andrew. Walking past him towards the exit, he said, "A word, Andrew." Andrew gave Miss Bella a polite nod before following Tom Hill. Once out of Bella's view, Tom turned to Andrew and said, "I just spoke with her. She is fine, but please tell me I haven't just compromised her location," he said in almost a growl. "Call out her number," was Andrew's response. There was no point wasting time on small talk. Tom Hill promptly obliged, his voice shaking a little as he called out the number. Dawn picked up the phone at the first ring. Tom quickly spoke into the phone, wanting her to know it was him calling, before passing the phone to Andrew. "Dad, are you there? Why did you end the call like that?" Dawn probed with concern. "Miss Hill, this is Andrew, head of the Hawthornes' security team, and I need you to listen to me. Your parents' call right now may have compromised your location, and for security reasons, I'm going to need you to grab what you can and head to the nearest airport," Andrew said. "What? What happened? What security?" Dawn was saying, but Tom interrupted. "Dawn, damn it, girl, you are in danger. He's trying to tell you to run, girl," he bellowed. There was a moment of pause on the other end before a shaky voice responded. "The nearest airport?" Dawn repeated. "Yes, the nearest airport. I will send someone to get you now," Andrew answered. "Okay," Dawn replied, her voice trembling. "Dawn?" Tom Hill called. "Yes, Dad," she answered. "You know you're all I have, right?" Tom said, his voice breaking. "I'll be safe, Dad," she replied, with a note of emotion in her voice. Andrew ended the call. "Who can we send?" Tom quickly asked. Anton is airborne now. He is our best bet. But let me find out the craft he is piloting, Andrew replied. If he is flying the Hawthorne custom-made Falcon Swift, he'll be there in no time. Andrew quickly called Anton, who answered after the second ring. Which craft are you piloting? Was Andrew's first question. Falcon Swift, Anton replied, then quickly added, I'm already on my way back, though. No, listen to me. You are to pick up Miss Hill. I will send you her coordinates, Andrew said. After the call, Andrew hurried outside to assemble 10 Hawthorne guards. Meeting them at the security post, he said, All right, listen. Guys, that body drop was a ploy to expose those dear to us for those criminals to attack. Now let's show them we've been in this business far longer than they could imagine. They are close. Let's comb through Manhattan and draw them out. Find them, Andrew yelled the last part. Inside Nathaniel's home office, Sean got up, and Aidan sped forward to put a hood over his head. Sean chuckled. Really? Sean remarked. Sorry, trust issues. Growing up in an orphanage will do that to you, especially when your adoptive parents promise to come back and then never do twice. It's hard to trust anyone, Aidan said, making Nathaniel frown at his unusual remark. It was both funny and heartbreaking at the same time. Jake's mind was nowhere in the office. He was thinking about Andrew, wondering why he hadn't returned to give them feedback on the communication issues. Every time he tried to get up, Nathaniel shot him a look. He let out a sigh, sitting forward to place his elbows on his knees as he started to tap his left foot on the floor. Aidan left with Sean, and Tom Hill walked in looking visibly agitated. He shut the door and crossed the room to the liquor cabinet. What happened, Tom? Nathaniel probed, his brows furrowing with concern. I may have given Anne or Henry's people my daughter's location, he said, the hand holding the glass shaking. Who has gone to get her? Nathaniel asked. Andrew called Anton, Tom Hill supplied. Jake nodded to himself. Anton should already be in New Jersey, and he was flying the Falcon Swift, a Hawthorne aircraft designed for speed and efficiency. With its advanced hybrid turbofan engines and streamlined lightweight frame, it can cruise at 500 miles per hour and has a range of 800 miles, ensuring it can make the trip to Miss Hill in under 3 hours without needing to refuel. The craft was faster than any other airborne vehicle in existence, making it perfect for urgent missions like this. Also, Andrew being able to reach Anton meant Christine was fine. Nathaniel had said he would notify the captain to send a countrywide alert to law enforcement to protect everyone listed on the hit list. Jake just really hoped the men assigned would be efficient enough to do the job. Since they can't be everywhere, the best bet was to go after Anne and that lunatic Henry. Damn it to hell, he cursed internally. His injury couldn't have happened at a worse time. Nathaniel refused to add him to the list of those going on the missions, and he was beyond agitated. Anton will get her, Mr. Hill. He is highly trained for combat and a great pilot, Jake said, giving the older man a sidelong glance. Tom Hill raised his glass as if in salute and said, From your mouth to the God's ears, Jake, before downing the drink. Jake nodded in acknowledgement and looked away. Let's go have Arya take a look at your back, Jake, Nathaniel said, stepping out from behind his desk. Coming, Tom, he added, sensing the restless energy in the room. He knew sitting still wouldn't help. He also wished he could be out there, actively involved, but that would put everything in jeopardy. He recognized that and hoped Jake would understand that he couldn't be of help, especially if he was dead. About 3 hours later, Anton reached Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and parked the craft at Signature Flight Support's hangar space for fueling. Generously tipping the guys on duty, he told them he wasn't staying long. The men nodded and got to work. Leaving the hangar, he wore a face cap, pulling it down over his brows as he ventured out into the airport, silently noting the red dot on his smartphone indicating Dawn Hill was in the vicinity. He made his way through the terminal. At every security check, he flashed his Department of Defense ID, which showed he was a Marine, allowing him to use the TSA pre-check lanes. These lanes typically have shorter wait times and do not require removing shoes, belts, or light jackets. He had seen Miss Hill once on the Hawthorne twins' birthday. If his memory served him right, she was the one responsible for the baked goods, or perhaps just the birthday cake. He couldn't really tell. He remembered thinking Miss Jonas was pretty good with baked goods and didn't get why they needed an outsider to make the cake until he found out she was Mr. Hill's estranged daughter. He figured then that it might have been a ploy by Dr. Hawthorne to bring the family together. The cake tasted great though, so perhaps it wasn't all about nepotism. Strolling nonchalantly through the airport terminal with his face lowered, Anton discreetly scanned the faces of everyone seated and waiting for their flight. He tried not to glance too often at his blinking watch, not wanting to be obvious. As the dot on his phone grew larger, indicating he was closer, he raised his face to scan the room. He saw a lady in a corner with a backpack strapped to her back, wearing a face cap pulled down over her face. She was tapping her leg impatiently and looking intently at her phone as if her life depended on it. Movements from the far end of the terminal caught Anton's attention. He watched as the lady discreetly looked back through a compact powder mirror, then got up to walk past him. Anton followed her. Getting in step with her, he said, "What's the password, Miss Hill?" Dawn almost tripped over her own feet as she looked up, her eyes brimming with tears as she gave him a searching gaze. "You know me. Who are you? What password?" she replied, her voice shaking with fear. "Yeah, I'm just trying to confirm you are not a clone," Anton quipped. Dawn's eyes widened. "Are you—" she started to say. Anton placed one arm over her shoulder to draw her to his side and said, "Keep walking and act like we are a couple." Understanding dawned in her eyes as she nodded. "You are from the Hawthornes," she said under her breath. "If I'm not, ma'am, you would be dead," he quipped. Dawn let out a sigh. "I've done my best to hide from those men for hours now. They narrowly missed me at home." "Please, what's happening?" she said in a low voice filled with agitation. "I think it's best if Mr. Hill answers that. I'm not fully in the loop myself," he replied. Back on the tarmac, Anton noticed the men were still tailing them. Instead of leading them to his craft, he headed toward another private craft service. Upon reaching the hangar, he pulled Dawn to a side wall and waited. After about a minute, Anton nodded for Dawn to move, but the click of a gun at his side made them freeze. "Please don't shoot for the love of God, don't shoot. This is just a gig for me, man," Anton cried in utter panic. "Then hand over the girl and walk away," the cold, menacing voice said. "Well, I'm not stupid enough to refuse that deal, so you're saying all I have to do is walk away?" Anton asked, making sure to sound fearful. "Of course," the man said with a shrug, probably thinking Anton was the dumbest person ever. "But," Dawn started to say, but Anton kept talking loud enough to drown her voice. "I'm sorry, Mom. Your pay is great, but not worth dying for. I've got 9 kids and a wife who I'm sure would marry my brother if I dropped dead," Anton said, a tad dramatically. The man to his left chuckled humorlessly. The place was dark and Anton couldn't see Dawn's eyes, but her next "What?" conveyed her shock and disbelief. "You can't just leave me," she protested as Anton moved with his hands up, walking toward the man. "I'm just going to walk away, man. No need to act crazy now. My 9 kids will thank you. You are a good man. A great man. Thank you," Anton said. The man grinned, his white teeth flashing in the dark. "Sure," he replied. Before Anton could reach him, the man pointed his gun at Anton, but before he could fire, a throwing knife struck him right in the middle of his forehead. Anton heard Dawn gasp as the man dropped to his knees. He quickly glanced back at her over his shoulder to ensure no one else had sneaked up on them before dragging the fallen man into the corner. Anton pulled out his knife, wiped off the blood, and tucked it back into his belt strap, covering it with his shirt. He then extended his hand to Dawn. When she hesitated to take it, he said with a grin, "You didn't think I was going to leave you, did you?" Dawn let out an awkward chuckle. "Well, you scared me shitless," she replied. "Ah, don't worry. I'd sooner take a bullet than let anyone grab you on my watch," he said, meaning it. "Thank you," Dawn said. "Don't thank me yet. We still have more of them to evade before we can leave," he replied, pulling her close as he shepherded her to the end of the corner to peer out. "Sorry, I gotta ask, you really have 9 kids?" Dawn asked, sounding a tad befuddled. Anton chuckled. "I plan to one day," he replied. "Oh," Dawn responded, shaking her head as a smile animated her features. "I take it you don't have a brother either," she added. "Oh, I do have a brother, and I wouldn't be surprised if he married my widow the day he heard I was dead. He always had a habit of taking whatever I had when we were kids, so he's pretty good at grabbing what's not his," Anton replied. I can't even tell if you're serious, Dawn chuckled, giving him a sidelong glance. Yeah, well, gotta keep the mystery, ma'am, Anton quipped, winking at her before focusing on scanning the perimeter for more threats. After taking Sean Cavalier to the security post to get ready and geared up with the others, Aidan returned to his apartment, wanting to see Noria before he left. When he arrived at his apartment, he saw her reading a book and smiled to himself, pleased that she was starting to broaden her mind. He thought that once the security issues were resolved, he would suggest she pick a school to attend to try and get back to her life, which had been interrupted by her dysfunctional background. Perhaps she could get her GED and then enroll in college or something similar. Hey, Noria greeted him as he walked in. You okay? He asked, gesturing to her hand. She smiled sheepishly. Yeah, I'm okay, thanks to you, she replied. Good, Aidan said, heading inside to get dressed. He picked out a chain with a crucifix pendant to wear, strapped on his weapons, and walked back into the living room. Noria slowly sat up when she saw him in full military gear. Where are you going? She asked, a note of fear in her voice. Work, he said with a smile. Outside the estate, she probed, her eyes filled with worry. Yeah, come, he invited, gesturing for her to follow him as he walked back to the bedroom. He then pulled a bag from under his bed, placed it on top, and opened it. I prepared this for you, just in case, he said, his voice trailing off into a meaningful pause before he continued. If you don't want to stay, nothing will stop you. Although I know Andrew will look after you, this cash should last you for at least 12 months if you're frugal, Aidan explained. What? Noria said, making him stop and look at her. What do you mean by just in case? Aidan, she asked, her eyes darting, her voice barely a whisper. Noria, I'm a security operative. I'm always in danger. I'm sure you've realized that by now, he quipped. I know that, she replied quickly, sounding slightly offended. But you sound like this might be the last time I see you, Aidan, she managed to say. Yeah, well, maybe, he teased. Noria looked as if she might burst into tears. But we've barely even... This can't be the last time, Aidan, she stuttered, her last words coming out stronger and firmer. I'm not saying it is for sure, just in case, Aidan said. Noria nodded. Yeah, I get it, she said, lowering her eyes so he couldn't see into them. He sighed, zipped up the bag, and kicked it back under the bed. Gotta go, see you later, hopefully, he said, heading to the door. Aidan? Noria called, making him pause. When he looked back, she rushed into his arms, wrapping her arms around his waist. Aidan stood still for a moment before gently holding her back. You have to come back, she whispered against his chest. Aidan smiled. All right, I'll try, he said. Noria drew back a bit and looked into his eyes. The mix of emotions in her gaze seemed to draw him in, making him forget their situation for a moment. Noria stood on her toes and shyly pressed her lips to his. Aidan jerked back in abrupt recoil. Noria's eyes widened in dismay before dimming with pain as she turned away to hide her face. Aidan cursed under his breath, feeling terrible about his reaction. He closed the distance between them, pulled her close, ignoring her protest as he cupped her face and pressed his lips to hers. Wrapping one arm around her waist, he lifted her up and took her lips in a searing kiss, making her whimper with pleasure. When he paused to breathe, she was trembling in his arms, her eyes shut. Open your eyes and look at me, Noria, he commanded. Her eyelids slowly fluttered open. You're a girl and I'm a man. Letting you have your way with me is like a babe playing with a wolf. I will devour you, Noria. You need to grow first. If in 3 years' time you still want to kiss me, I will gladly let you. Until then, honey, don't you ever tempt me like that again, he said, his voice low and gruff, his desire and passion evident in his voice, eyes, and body, so she knew he was far from repulsed by her. Noria nodded gingerly, looking utterly dazed. Kiss me, she said, her voice low and raspy. Noria, Aidan groaned. One more time, she said, biting down on her lower lip as she gingerly touched her trembling fingers to her lips. This is what it feels like, she said in a low, fervent whisper. Aidan kissed her again. When he exited the apartment a few minutes later, he was smiling and hoped he would indeed make it to her 22nd birthday. Upon reaching the security post, Aidan saw the others already waiting with Sean. He felt uneasy that Jake, Andrew, or Charles weren't coming as backup. but he figured he had to learn to lead missions too. "All right, let's do this," he announced, as he connected his radio with everyone's, including Andrew. "We are heading out," he said once he was connected to Andrew. "Jordan will be joining you. He has picked up the messenger girl and is waiting outside the county district police station. Make sure you follow his lead." Andrew's voice resounded in his head as the older man continued giving instructions. "Sean, do you copy?" Andrew said. "Loud and clear," Sean replied. "Great, I hope you remember the plan." Andrew probed. "Yeah, I do. I'm the bait for the bear, and you guys wouldn't even let me have a gun," Sean Cavalier quipped. "You've got to trust us. Aiden is going to be your personal bodyguard," Andrew replied in jest. "Yeah, the guy with trust issues." "Go figure," Sean replied. "You wound me," Aiden quipped, holding a hand to his chest with a pained expression making everyone chuckle. "All right, boys, let's bring in the roast," Andrew concluded. "You hear the boss, let's go," Aiden said as they filed out and into 3 armored jeeps. Aiden sat in the back of one of the jeeps alongside Sean Cavalier. When his phone chimed with a message, Sean threw him a side glance. Aiden grinned at the other man's acute vigilance. "You will make a great soldier," Aiden said. "Nah, roughing it is not my thing." "Don't let this skin color fool you," he replied with a smile. "I'm a full-blown Italian. I love good things. Women and luxury," he quipped. Aiden chuckled. Aiden didn't check his message until the other man was distracted. He saw it was from Andrew and it read, "You have 2 off-script backups. Use them wisely." Aiden took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He felt a bit offended that Andrew thought he needed babysitting, but he was also glad for his big brother's energy. He was certain Jake had something to do with it because he knew if Jake wasn't injured, he would be the one driving the lead jeep. He chuckled to himself. "Want to share the joke?" Sean asked. "I'm just wondering how many doses of tranquilizer the boss needs to give Jake to keep him contained right now. I mean, we are going after Henri Cavalier?" Aiden quipped, lying. Sean responded, and Aiden watched as the other man seemed to lapse into some kind of trance. "It's a good thing he isn't coming, you know. I'm pretty sure if not for Nathaniel, Henri and I would already be dead because of Julia," Sean Cavalier said. "What do you have to do with it?" "It wasn't as if you had a hand in it. You were trying to save her," Aiden replied, watching the other man intently. "You have no idea," Sean said almost to himself, and then went quiet. Just when Aiden thought the conversation was over, Sean added, "When I saw her in the park, she wasn't herself. It was as if I had already lost her. Her face was damaged. She was not the Julia I knew. The Julia I knew would have eaten a bullet before she let anyone see her like that. And then there was the business with Ricky, her getting pregnant for him, the news becoming public knowledge. Letting my men drag me away almost felt like I knew it was best if she died. For her, for me, for us. I don't think I will ever forgive myself or Henri for doing that to her. To me." Aiden couldn't quite believe his ears. "I suppose you are right. It was better that she died," Aiden replied, looking out the car's side window, not wanting Sean to see or sense his anger. The bastard thought Julia was tainted because of her scars and being raped. What a jerk, Aiden thought to himself. The woman wasn't a saint and may have deserved such superficial love. But damn, that's just sad. He hoped his mic was off and Jake wasn't listening in. As they passed the county district, Jordan joined the convoy with the messenger girl, leading them not to Brooklyn as they had initially thought, but to the remote Sullivan County. Located about 90 miles northwest of New York City, Sullivan County has a mix of rural areas and small towns, making it a perfect hideout for a degenerate like Henri. "I think I know where he is," Sean mused aloud, and started to direct the drivers to a marshland in a secluded region of Sullivan County. Soon enough, they arrived at a marshland that spanned several acres, with a mix of waterlogged ground, dense reeds, and patches of solid, moss-covered earth. The air was thick with humidity, with a mist hanging low over the water now that it was late evening. The marsh was evidently teeming with wildlife, judging by the sounds of frogs, herons, and the chirping of various insects, adding to the background of natural sounds. "We have to stop here and carry on foot," Sean said. Aiden tensed up. In the distance, there was a weathered, two-story wooden structure on stilts. It had a rustic, almost eerie charm with peeling paint and a sagging porch. A narrow wooden walkway connected the house to a small clearing where an old dirt road led back to the main road. Aidan thought it looked like the perfect scene for a horror movie. All the men disembarked, and Aidan thought it would be prudent to divide them into 3 groups, the first team heading to the house, while the other 2 watched before following suit. He turned to gesture to Jordan, only to find that Sean had already disappeared. "What the?" he muttered, quickly scanning the grounds. He saw Sean already crossing the wooden bridge. "I should have cuffed that little shit." "And they wondered why I had trust issues," Aidan muttered, as he quickly gestured for the men to follow Sean for backup. He knew damn well he could not let Sean Cavalier die on his watch. Yes, they agreed to use him as bait, but not for the idiot to dangle himself in front of the shark. Following Aidan's lead, they all split into 3 groups, with Aidan in front alongside Jordan and Henry's messenger. "You know I'm supposed to keep you alive. I can't do that if you keep making dumb moves," Aidan said through gritted teeth as he got close to Sean. "Please, he already knows we're here," Sean replied. Then he added, "Fire straight at your 9 o'clock to let them know we mean business." Aidan let out a curse and promptly did as Sean directed. A loud thud resounded in the surrounding vegetation, right before about 20 armed men appeared with guns drawn. Aidan was glad he had split the teams into 3. Jordan held Henry's messenger by the arm, pressing a gun to her head as Henry was wheeled out in a wheelchair. "I see you survived," Henry said, addressing Sean. "No thanks to you, though," Sean replied, sounding calm despite the 20 guns trained on them. Aidan mentally calculated their odds of survival and didn't think they were great. "Come now, don't be a baby about it. Why do you think I took you to Nate's woman? The goody two-shoes was going to fight tooth and nail to keep you alive," Henry rasped. "I see you're doing great too," Sean quipped, the sarcasm thick in his words. "Yeah, well, soon enough Nate will get what's coming to him, as well as his guard dog, Jake Darfield, and that prick, Andrew." "The whole lot of them," Henri retorted. "They just want you to leave them alone, Pops," Sean said. Aidan couldn't help clenching his jaw. What game was Sean playing now? Henri must know by now that Sean wasn't his son. "They messed up my plans, got their noses into what isn't their business, destroyed all I worked for. It's far beyond peace talk now, and to make matters worse, Hawthorne keeps sending idiots to try to take me out." Henri bellowed. "I'm going to do him a solid and send all his men back in body bags. It would do you well to stand aside, son," Henri Cavalier replied. Aidan could almost see smoke coming out of his ears. But what the hell was happening? Didn't Henry know about Sean yet? "Pops," Sean called, trying to interrupt Henry, but the madman went on. "I assume, of course, you lured them here. Otherwise, I won't forgive this easily. It's clever of you to have them think you're on their side, but I'm not in the mood for diplomacy," Henri continued. Aidan didn't like where this was going and wasn't about to let himself or his men be executed on his watch. He was certain there were crocodiles or alligators in the swamp, or whatever predators Henry might have around to cover up his murders. Jordan shared a look with him, and Aidan stepped forward. "Even if you found out Anne Cavalier was the one in charge all along, and that it wasn't Hawthorne sending killers after you, but your sister, who is pretty set on killing both you and him no matter what," Aidan yelled, gesturing at Sean as he quickly pulled out his phone and played Anne's recorded confession. Her voice rang loudly in the air. Henry slowly stood up from the wheelchair. "This is why we are here with your son. We are not the ones after you. Your sister is. She's been trying to pit us against each other. Quick question, Kimura. Did you send your people after us in Manitoba?" Aidan watched as fury swirled in Henry's eyes, his fists clenching. "I'm guessing not, seeing as you're holed up here in this unholy swamp," Aidan added. "Stop insulting him," Sean whispered, making Aidan pause. "Well, she is making a whole lot of moves, making people think it's you, so you have targets on your back alongside hers. You said you're not in the mood for peace talk. Neither are we," Aidan finished, watching as Henry's eyes darted between him and Sean, seeking confirmation. Sean nodded. "She tried to blow me and Grandpa up at Evergreen Memorial Hospital." Henri shrugged. "It seems she was trying to do my job for me, except she messed up by trying to take you down along with the old man," he said. "There's one more thing," Sean said. Aidan held his breath. For some reason, Grandpa and Anne believe I'm his son, Sean added. Aidan's heart almost stopped. Is this guy stupid or what? He thought to himself. Sean just blew their only shield, putting them all in greater danger. Aidan then noticed that, while Sean was talking, he had moved closer to Henry and was now only about a foot away from him. What on earth is this jerk planning? Henry started to laugh, a cold, menacing kind. Sean then pulled out his phone and held it up as if wanting to show Henry something. As he stepped onto the porch, he asked a question that almost made Aidan's heart stop. And lastly, who is Jaden? And why does Aunt Anne think she still has Julia, my wife? Sean growled the last part. Aidan watched in horror as Sean drew Henry's own knife from his belt and plunged it into the older man's side. Aidan thought they were goners for sure. Hey, remember that off-script backup? We need them now. Aidan typed into his phone and pressed send just before Henry's men began advancing, closing in on them. Aidan's second and third backups spread out behind the advancing Camoras. When one focused on Aidan and brandished his gun ready to shoot, a bullet whizzed through the clearing, hitting the man squarely in the forehead. That's a warning shot. One more step and Whitebeard goes down next. A booming voice Aidan knew too well echoed through the shrouded ground. It was Lewis. Aidan grinned unabashedly and raised an eyebrow at the two men already about 3 feet away from him. When another man growled in anger and shoved the man in front of him out of the way, brandishing a knife at Aidan and Jordan, another bullet hit him in the chest. He croaked, eyes wide, his face paling as he fell to his knees. Again, no one move, another voice commanded. It was Will. The other men took 2 steps back, their eyes scanning the darkened surroundings. Brothers, they can be quite protective, innit? Aidan quipped. Hold your fire, Sean yelled loudly. Nobody needs to die here tonight. If you provoke me, I will slit Henry's throat right here, right now, Sean bellowed, catching the men's attention. They started to carefully retreat, leaving the dead men on the dirt-filled ground. Sit down, Henry, Sean snapped, forcefully making the older man sit down. He then put the knife threateningly against Henry's throat, giving the man behind him a meaningful glare. The man raised his hands in surrender and left the porch to stand with the others. I want my answers, Sean growled at Henry. First, I'm sure you already know that you are not Samuel Cavalier's son. It was a backup plan of mine if all else failed. Yes, the accident that took my mother left its mark, but I got lucky and made sure to confirm you were mine immediately after you were born. Then I found out about your mother's infidelity with my own father and thought it would be a perfect plan to secure our line. So now you know why she had to die, Henri replied, his voice raspy, rough, and weak, blood spilling from his mouth. I thought about that. I figured you would have known all these years with your scheming, but I didn't want to voice my doubts without proof. You will give me that proof, Sean said, his voice low and gruff. Hawthorne wants you, but he didn't say you had to be alive, he added. So it would do you good to answer my questions, or I swear, father or not, I will slit your throat. Henry started to laugh again. Quite poetic justice, isn't it? I tried to kill my father, and you are doing the same. Believe it or not, son, we are the same. After all, the Julia woman was a freaking weakness you had, until you realized she was damaged and needed to be put down, like I did your mother, Henry said. I'm nothing like you, Sean yelled, his voice filled with emotion. Aidan saw how Sean tightened his hold on the knife, pressing the sharp edge to Henry's throat, and knew if no one intervened, Sean would kill his father. Aidan stepped forward, but Henry wouldn't shut up. She is dead, Sean. Anne is trying to get in your head, knowing how you would react. That Jezebel got you doing exactly what she wanted, you dumb turd, Henry yelled. Is she? Sean repeated, his voice low and hard. Aidan let out a curse and yelled, Sean, don't! His voice trailed off as Sean swiped the knife across Henry's throat and then pushed him down the porch. There was a moment of absolute silence before all hell broke loose. Back at the Hawthorne household, Nathaniel paced, listening intently to the radio transmission detailing the events in Sullivan County. He was back in his study with Tom Hill, Andrew, and Jake, after taking Jake to Aria for a bandage change. He stopped pacing when the gunshots ceased, leaning over the edge of his desk, gripping it tightly as he waited with bated breath. Aidan, Jordan, do you copy? Andrew called into the radio, waiting anxiously. Lewis, Will, give feedback, please, he added. The tension in the room was palpable. Jake sat with his elbows on his knees, his chin resting on his interlocked hands. His jaw was clenched, his entire body wound tight with anxiety. They all knew the probable outcome of sending Sean with the other men to capture Henri. What they hadn't anticipated was Anne adding fuel to the already simmering inferno by bringing up Julia. It wasn't clear if Sean believed Julia was still alive. But now that he had the hope she might be and had Jaden's name, Jake was certain the other man would leave no stone unturned to verify it wasn't just a sick ploy. That's what he would have done, at least. He wasn't entirely sure how he felt about it, but if Henry died by Sean's hand, that would mean one Camorra down, and Julia would be free once the other witch lady was dealt with. What he wasn't certain about was Sean's feelings regarding Julia. The man seemed utterly unhinged at the mention of her, yet he'd thought her better off dead. He is still alive, they heard Jordan say. Jake's ears perked up, a question resounding in his head. Who is alive? Lewis, do you copy? I need feedback, guys. Answer me now, Andrew said, agitated. Sorry, I was doing a head count. Sean is fine, the freaking lunatic. Henri is barely alive. Sean's slit his throat, but it isn't deep, Lewis replied. Where is Aiden? Nathaniel asked. Aiden is? Shit, they heard Lewis yell. Man down, Nathaniel let out a low growl. About 30 minutes later, the craft sent to bring in the wounded descended to the back of the concierge medical unit. Aiden was the first to be lowered. Nathaniel stood still upon seeing him strapped to a rescue stretcher. Everyone hurried to carry him inside, where Aria was already waiting with the other doctors. Next, they brought in Henry Cavalier, and Dr. Rowan hurried to attend to him. Aria was surrounded by Andrew, Jake, Charles, Lewis, and about 10 others as they cut off Aiden's gear to reveal his gunshot wounds. Aria and Anita quickly worked to determine where he was hit, trying to stop the bleeding. Anita swiftly hooked him up to the necessary medical equipment, a heart monitor to track his pulse, a blood pressure cuff to monitor his blood pressure, an oxygen mask to assist his breathing, and an IV drip to administer fluids and medication. Aria deftly assessed Aiden's wounds. One bullet had grazed his chest, a lucky miss that caused only a superficial wound, but the other was lodged deep in his abdomen. She instructed Andrew to hand her the sterilized surgical tools, and Anita cleaned the area around the wound with antiseptic. Using forceps, Aria carefully probed the abdominal wound. A low groan emitted from Aiden, his body tensing as she worked to locate the bullet. Stay with me, Aiden, she murmured, her focus unwavering. After a tense moment, she felt the tip of the bullet. I've got it, she said, her voice steady as she carefully extracted the bullet, blood welling up around the wound. Anita immediately applied pressure to staunch the bleeding while Aria cleaned and sutured the injury. As they finished, Aiden's heart monitor began to emit a series of rapid beeps, then a continuous tone. He's flatlining, Anita exclaimed, her voice sharp with urgency and dread. Clear the area, Aria commanded, her voice calm but firm. The men stepped back, but didn't move too far off, as if leaving would mean losing him. Aria grabbed the defibrillator paddles and placed them on Aiden's chest. Charging to 200, she announced. The machine beeped as it charged, and everyone held their breath. Clear, she shouted, pressing the paddles down and delivering a shock. Aiden's body jolted, but the monitor showed no change. Come on, Aiden, Aria urged, her eyes intense. Charging to 300. Clear! She delivered another shock with steady hands. This time the monitor responded with a series of beeps as Aiden's heart restarted, albeit weakly. Aria took a few sharp breaths, raising her eyes to meet Andrew, Jake, Jordan, Lewis, Will, and Charles, who stood like guardian angels by the bedside. He's back, she said, her lips trembling. The men nodded in response, but still didn't move. Anita, let's keep an eye on his vitals. We need to keep him stable. The tension in the unit began to ease off as they saw that Aiden was stable now, but still the men stayed close. Aria traced her thumb against his brows to wipe away splashes of blood. Anita came with a warm towel to start cleaning him up, and Aria threw her a grateful glance. On the other side of the unit, Rowan, Dr. Williams, and Dr. Sterling worked to keep Henri Cavalier alive, but then the beeping sound of his heart giving in filled the air. Aria left Aiden's side to help, but there was no point. The sound of the heart stopping resounded ominously in the unit. Arya glanced at Samuel Cavalier's bed. The man was in a deep sleep, oblivious to what was happening. Arya felt awful for him. She couldn't imagine what it would feel like to lose a child, even one who was an evil incarnate. A movement at the unit's entrance caught Jake's attention. Sean Cavalier peered in before coming inside. Jake watched as Nathaniel strode purposefully towards Sean. Leaving Aidan's bedside, Jake followed, with Andrew close behind. The two watched as Nathaniel grabbed Sean by the front of his shirt and shoved him outside the unit. Jake didn't need to see Nathaniel hit Sean. The loud grunt echoing through the canopy said it all. By the time they got outside, Sean was on the ground, spitting out blood. "You are lucky I didn't lose any of my men due to your reckless shit. Otherwise, I would have buried you alive." "My promise to your grandfather be damned," Nathaniel said in a low, forceful tone. "I'm sorry, okay? Aunt Anne texted me on our way to Sullivan County saying Henri kept Julia alive and her warden's name was Jaden. The thought of him making her do diabolical shit got to me," Sean explained. "Really? But you still let your father kill her?" Jake taunted him in a low, solemn tone. "How dare you? You know nothing about it. It was almost like tonight, with bullets flying everywhere. I could have been hit too." Sean protested indignantly as he got back on his feet. "I really doubt that, Sean, considering it was your father's men," Jake replied. "What? The lunatic stabbed me," Sean retorted. "And now you've evened the score, and he's dead. Are you quite satisfied?" Nathaniel interjected. "He had it coming," Sean responded. Nathaniel shrugged. "I really don't care either way. However, if you believe in any god, you should pray that Aidan makes it. Or I swear by all the gods, you will be next," Nathaniel said before turning and walking back inside. "Just so you know, if Aidan dies, there won't be anything left of you to bury," Andrew said, his voice low and gruff. "Guys, I'm sorry, okay," Sean said. The other men turned away and went back inside, leaving him standing there. Tom Hill, still worried about Dawn and Anton not being back yet, stood aside, watching as Sean dusted himself off and wiped his bloodied face with his sleeve. "Go ahead, give me your best shot. I know you think I'm a degenerate too," Sean said, glancing at the older man. Tom Hill slipped his hands into his pockets, wishing he could smoke despite having quit a long time ago. "Nobody cares about what you did to Henry, Sean. It's the way you went about it, like a madman, that matters," Tom Hill replied. Sean let out a humorless laugh. "Trust me, I know Nathaniel expected me to kill him. He's just mad Aidan got hurt," Sean retorted. "Same thing, Sean," Tom Hill said, glancing up at the sky and wondering where the hell Anton was. "Quick question. When did you realize Samuel Cavalier was wrong and that you're not his son but his grandson?" Tom Hill asked, needing a distraction. "I'm not going to lie. I believed him when he told us at the hospital, but later I started to think. The old man didn't even know he was sick for a long time until Nathaniel made him suspicious. Thinking about Henri's scheming, I just knew he would have found out, and I would have been dead by now. I wasn't surprised when he admitted it. I intend to speak to Dr. Hawthorne about a DNA test." "The three of us are here. She can help me find out who my real father is," Sean replied. "Do you intend to tell Samuel, though? He has arranged his affairs believing you are his son?" Tom Hill asked, watching as the younger man met and held his gaze. "As my lawyer, what do you advise?" Sean asked. Early on at Atlanta International Airport, Anton and Dawn managed to sneak to the hangar where their aircraft was parked. They spotted two men questioning the workers on duty, asking if they had seen a girl come their way. "No, sorry," one of the workers responded. However, as the men turned to leave, one of them glanced towards Anton's aircraft and saw the unmistakable Hawthorne Group logo. He nudged his companion, gesturing towards the craft. The other man then retrieved his gun, aiming it at the workers. Anton had no choice but to intervene, blowing their cover. He threw his knife across the expansive space, striking one man in the eyeball, and fired at the other before he could direct his gun in their direction. "Call the police," Anton told the workers, who thanked him for saving their lives. He sprinted across the hangar to the craft, ensuring Dawn entered first. Before he could get in, more men came rushing with guns blazing. After a few tense minutes, Anton finally made it inside the craft. Bullets bounced off the exterior as he started the engine, and soon enough, They were up in the air. My God, just who were those people? Dawn questioned, agitated and bewildered. Anton didn't answer. He could feel a searing pain in his side and could tell he had been hit. After about 2 hours of trying his best to hide it and keep his eyes open, he finally said, Miss Hill, have you ever flown an aircraft? No? Why? Dawn asked hesitantly, her eyes darting around as she reached his side. Well, do you think you could give it a try, like, right now? Anton asked, almost non-committally. Wait, what? Dawn exclaimed. Anton knew he sounded utterly ridiculous asking a baker if they'd flown a craft before, but it was worth a try. It was either that or he might slip into unconsciousness if he continued without attending to his wound. Then they would be majorly screwed. Please tell me this is one of your jokes because, haha, very funny, Dawn replied, making him chuckle despite himself. I promise, Miss Hill, I have a good reason, Anton quipped. So, you are? You're serious? She stuttered, clearly alarmed. Don't worry, I will talk you through it. Besides, it also has an autopilot mode. I'm just going to need you to land us when we get home. That's all, he said as he took off his seatbelt. Oh God, oh God, oh God, Dawn muttered. Ah, come on, you are Mr. Hill's daughter. That old man is the toughest I know. You can do this, Anton said. When Dawn didn't speak as he put the craft on autopilot and slipped out, he looked at her and saw her eyes glued to the pilot's seat where blood had stained the leather. You are bleeding, she said in awe. Don't worry about it, he said, pausing as he managed to get to the first aid compartment to yank the box out and take it with him back to the cockpit. Do you mind switching seats? He added. Dawn quickly got up for him and gingerly sat in the pilot's seat with widened eyes and trembling hands. Tell me the truth. Are we going to make it? She asked in a small voice. We'd better. I didn't want to meet your old man in the afterlife if we don't, he quipped. Dawn looked at him as if he was a complete nutcase. How can you be so calm and joke at a time like this? She asked. I'm not, but it wouldn't do any good if we both started panicking, he replied. She narrowed her gaze at him. You don't seem bothered one bit, she said. Anton chuckled as he settled down. Let me tell you a secret. When my American accent starts to slip and my Scottish accent takes over, that's when you know I'm truly panicking. He quipped as he took off his top, revealing a perfectly toned, muscular torso as he tried to check his wound. Seeing it was a through-and-through wound, he poured disinfectant on his side, gritting his teeth against the pain. He then applied a sterile bandage to the entry and exit wounds, securing them tightly. Finally, he took some antibiotics from the first aid kit and swallowed them, shaking his head to fight off drowsiness. All patched up, he said, settling back in his seat. Now let's get you ready for landing. We're getting close to the Upper East Side where we're supposed to land. I'll guide you through every step. Dawn nodded, her hands still trembling but determined. Okay, I can do this, she repeated to herself. Good, Anton replied. I trust you can. Dawn nodded vigorously, but then her gaze shifted from the sea of buttons and control panels on the dashboard to the view outside the window. She took in the sight of New York from above the dark, shrouded plain, with the twinkling lights looking like stars among the skyscrapers. The craft jolted slightly, and Dawn let out a shaky breath. Mister, I don't think I can do it, Dawn exclaimed in panic. When she received no response, she glanced at Anton and saw he had slipped into unconsciousness. Mister, Dawn called out frantically. Her voice roused Anton, who forced his eyes open and slapped himself to stay alert. Jesus Christ, did you just fall asleep? Dawn cried. No, Anton replied uncertainly. Oh dear God, we are so screwed, Dawn exclaimed. Relax, will ya? Anton said in a quiet drawl, leaning forward to press a communication button to the Hawthorne security network. He then sat back with a sigh, breathing heavily. Soon a familiar voice came through the craft's speakers. You have no idea how glad I am to have you back, Anton. Tell me you've got Miss Hill, Andrew said. Anton gave a thumbs up in response. Dawn threw him an incredulous look before quickly interjecting, he's got me, but he's been shot. And now we need help landing. There was a brief silence before Andrew replied. Could you please repeat that, but calmly, Miss Hill? Did you say Anton was shot? Anton gave another thumbs up. Dawn cried, "Yes!" Andrew let out a string of expletives before saying, "Miss Hill, please confirm the craft is on autopilot mode." Dawn nodded vigorously as she replied, "Yes, it is." "Good, I'm sending my coordinates to Anton's phone right now. Could you please retrieve his phone?" Dawn nodded again and, realizing they couldn't see her, quickly responded, "Yes." As she reached for the phone Anton had left in the phone port earlier, the sound of the message dropping echoed inside the craft. "I've got it," she announced, her hands shaking as she tried to open the message. "Good, and Miss Hill, please calm down. We'll get you landed safely," Andrew reassured. I'm calm, Dawn muttered repeatedly in a shaky tone. "The text you see contains my coordinates. It should be a string of numbers and letters. These are the latitude and longitude coordinates. On the craft's control panel, locate the navigation system. It should be in the center section of the dashboard, with a screen and several buttons around it. Find the input section for coordinates, usually marked nav data or coordinate entry. Enter the information exactly as it appears in the message, ensuring there are no extra spaces or errors. Once you've input the coordinates, the system will automatically plot the course to my location. Follow any prompts that appear on the screen to confirm and initiate the landing sequence. Do you understand? Andrew instructed firmly, though his tone was filled with patience. Yes, I do, Dawn replied, quickly following his instructions. After pressing the button, she paused, feeling the craft change course. Her breathing was loud and labored. I think it's working, she said in a small voice. Of course it's working, girl. Good job, came the reassuring response. It was Tom Hill. Dad? Dawn called out, her voice trembling. Yes, honey, just hold on. It's almost over. How did Anton get shot? Tom asked. At the concierge medical unit, Nathaniel, Tom Hill, Andrew, Jake, Charles, Dr. Sterling, and Anita waited in the clearing behind the unit for the craft to appear. Tom had asked Dawn about Anton to keep her distracted while the craft found its way home. When it eventually appeared overhead, a collective sigh of relief resonated, but Nathaniel held his breath, hoping for a safe landing without any unexpected attacks. His fists clenched as he stood still until the craft touched down. Andrew, Charles, Dr. Sterling, and Anita rushed forward with a stretcher, while Tom Hill followed to receive his daughter. Nathaniel finally let out a sigh as Aria's scent enveloped him. Without lowering his gaze, he drew her into his arms and pressed a kiss to the crown of her head. I told you to sit down, Aria, Nathaniel said. Aria sighed, burrowing into his embrace. The two watched as Anton was brought in on a stretcher by Andrew and Charles. Anton, are you still with us, lad? Jake quipped. Anton raised a thumbs up and replied, I told Miss Hill there's no need to worry, prompting everyone to chuckle. Tom Hill gave him a gentle pat on the chest. You did well, son. I owe you big time, Tom said. Anton nodded. Thank you, Anton, Nathaniel added. You're welcome, boss, Anton replied tiredly as he was carried in. Aria stepped forward and opened her arms for Dawn, who hurried to embrace her. Feeling her trembling, Aria comforted her. You're safe now, as she patted her on the back. Nathaniel hugged Dawn as well, before Tom tried to shepherd her to the cart that would take her to the house. Dawn stopped him, saying, Please, Dr. Hawthorne, will Anton be all right? Aria threw her a warm smile. Don't worry, he's in good hands, she replied. Dad, I'd rather stay here to make sure he's okay, Dawn said to Tom, her brows furrowed with worry. Tom smiled at her. Trust me, girl, he's got the very best doctors on his case, he reassured. Dawn nodded hesitantly before allowing him to usher her away. Nathaniel intertwined his fingers with Aria's, guiding her back inside to a corner couch that Andrew had set up for her earlier. He helped her sit down before moving closer to Anton, where he watched as Anita connected an IV line, and Dr. Sterling removed Anton's bandage to examine his wound. Not bad, Nathaniel heard the doctor murmur as she cleaned the wound, stitched it up, and then rebandaged his side, wrapping the bandage around his middle. Anita, preparing to administer a pain reliever injection, asked Anton if he had taken any medication. Antibiotics. About an hour ago, Anton replied weakly. Nathaniel, aware of the medications in the Hawthorns' first aid box, provided the names, amoxicillin for the antibiotics and ibuprofen for pain relief. Dr. Sterling nodded in understanding and instructed Anita, administer the same medications but ensure not to exceed the recommended dosage. Monitor his vital signs closely and adjust the dosage if needed to avoid any risk of overdose. Anita nodded and replied, "Yes, doctor." Afterward, Anton's bed was moved close to Aidan's, and a privacy shield was set up to separate their area from the Comoras. Sean Cavalier stood outside as the ambulance, which was supposed to transport Henry's body to the morgue, arrived. He then entered the room, scanning it until his gaze landed on Dr. Hawthorne. He walked toward her, drawing her attention as he stopped about 3 feet away. "Are you okay, Mr. Cavalier?" Arya asked, her concern clear in her voice. She noticed Jake immediately moving closer to her as the other man approached. "I'm fine, doctor. You're very kind. However, I'd appreciate a pain reliever. But first, I need your assistance with a DNA sample from Henri Cavalier before he's taken away," Sean requested. Jake scoffed. Arya gave him a confused look before focusing back on Sean. "Of course, but may I ask what you want us to investigate?" Arya asked. "My paternity, doctor. I want to confirm who my father is," Sean explained. Arya felt a pang of sympathy for him. "Certainly," she said, preparing to get up. Sean stepped forward to help her, but Jake growled at him in protest. Sean sighed and stepped back. Jake offered Arya a hand, which she accepted, and they walked together towards where Henry was laid. Once they were at a sufficient distance from Sean, Arya whispered to Jake, "Why are you being so mean to him? He seemed genuinely distressed, the poor thing." Jake chuckled at the idea of anyone considering Sean Cavalier a poor thing. Dr. Hawthorne often didn't see the true nature of things, otherwise she wouldn't describe someone like Sean as a victim. "My apologies, doctor. It's his fault Aidan got shot," Jake explained. Arya sighed. "That explains the busted lip. I'm guessing Nathan hit him. You all need to learn not to resort to violence for everything," she admonished. "Aidan will be fine. He has to be," she added. The two shared a look. Upon reaching Henry, Arya, with Jake's assistance, carefully took a DNA sample from Henry, using a sterile swab to collect cells. She placed the sample in a secure labeled container, ensuring it was properly preserved for analysis. After handling Henry's sample, Arya and Jake moved to Samuel Cavalier. Arya repeated the process, taking a DNA sample from the old man and securing it in a separate labeled container. Once both samples were prepared and preserved, Arya handed them to Jake. "Please ensure these samples reach Dr. Yen at Evergreen Memorial Hospital," she instructed. "It's crucial that this is handled with the utmost confidentiality and care. Make sure it gets to him as soon as possible." Jake nodded, turned away, gesturing to Andrew to join him. About 600 miles away from New York City on a remote island near Moscow, Julia, now known locally as Giselle, closed her boutique shop and headed home to a cabin on a snow-covered mountain that she shared with Jaden. It had been nearly 3 months since they settled in the remote village of Ivankovo, a small, isolated community surrounded by mountains and rolling hills. The snowy landscape could be lonely at times, but Giselle had begun to think of it as home, especially since she received the news. Smiling to herself, she gently placed a protective hand over her stomach, the very notion filling her with an unfamiliar but thrilling joy. "Spokojnej noci, John," she bid the owner of the shop next door goodnight as she got into her truck and started the engine. A few minutes later, while driving up the cabin lane, she noticed a familiar figure racing down the path on skis. "What the?" she muttered, slamming hard on the brakes and skidding to a stop. "Make a turn! Make a turn!" Jaden shouted urgently. "Jesus!" Giselle exclaimed, her heart racing as she quickly followed her command. Jaden yanked open the passenger door and yelled, "Step on it!" Just then Giselle heard unmistakable gunshots coming from behind them. "What's happening?" Giselle cried out in panic. "They found us!" Jaden replied, her chest heaving. "Damn it to hell!" Giselle cursed out loud. They were just beginning to truly settle down, she thought to herself. Jaden let out a string of expletives, drawing her attention as the other woman touched her hand to her shoulder and saw her palm was stained with blood. "You've been shot!" Giselle exclaimed in clear panic. Back at the Hawthorne household, Nathaniel pulled Arya aside, holding her close as Dr. Rowan signed off on Henry Cavalier's body. The paramedics wheeled the body away in a bag. Nathaniel saw Dr. Williams attending to Sean Cavalier's wound in a corner, with Sean deliberately facing away from his father's body. Nathaniel felt relieved that he couldn't relate to such a situation. His father had been a role model, always ensuring Nathaniel's safety and security. That kind of unwavering love was all he knew and what he intended to emulate for his own children. The animosity between Sean and Henry was alien to him, and he felt a pang of sympathy for Sean, who had never experienced true paternal love. Perhaps that was why Sean had been calm when Samuel told him he was his father. Now that hope was gone. But from what Nathaniel had heard, Samuel Cavalier wasn't a saint either, just a bit more stable than his sons. When Arya sighed, Nathaniel pressed a kiss on the crown of her head. Leaning in, he whispered, "Finish your final round, my love. I'm taking you home." His tone was firm and decisive. Arya knew better than to argue. She would have preferred to stay and keep vigil by Anton and Aidan's beds like the other doctors, but she understood this was one of the privileges of being the boss. She nodded and moved toward Anita, who was standing between Anton and Aidan's beds, checking their vitals and writing them down. Dr. Sterling had joined her, while Dr. Rowan and Dr. Williams were by Samuel Cavalier's bed, talking in hushed tones. Nathaniel signaled to Andrew, Jake, Charles, Lewis, Jordan, Will, and Sean Cavalier to follow him out of the unit. Once outside, he moved about 100 meters away from the medical unit and waited for the men to join him. Jake and Andrew flanked him, Charles stood behind him, and the rest of the men took protective stances as Sean joined them. "Question, Sean. When do you intend to bury Henry and where?" Nathaniel asked. Sean looked up at Nathaniel, his plaster-covered nose and busted lips visible. "I say we keep him on ice until Grandpa wakes up. He would want to pay his respects, and I don't want to deny him that," Sean said. Nathaniel nodded. He had expected this, but was more curious about where Sean planned to bury his father. "And as for the burial location, I'd like to take him home and bury him next to Mother," Sean added. Nathaniel met and held Sean's cold gaze. "I would appreciate your help with that and would even welcome an escort. Just in case," Sean said. Nathaniel slowly nodded. "And where would your grandfather be?" he asked cautiously. "Under your protection, if it's not too much trouble until I get things in order. And I would also like to borrow Mr. Hill." "His presence would be greatly appreciated," Sean replied. Nathaniel nodded, recognizing that Sean was giving him the opportunity he needed to execute his next plan, though he would scrutinize it carefully. Sean Cavalier seemed like a man on a mission, and while his mission might benefit Nathaniel, he had no desire to be involved in anything sadistic. "Mr. Hill is free to make his own decisions, Sean, but as long as Uncle Sam remains vulnerable, I intend to be his shield. Whatever you need to get Henry back to Naples for burial, I will help," Nathaniel replied. Sean nodded. "Then, in 2 weeks after his surgery, I would appreciate Dr. Hawthorne's help in keeping him conscious long enough for me to speak to him," Sean said. Nathaniel nodded. "I will speak with her," he replied. Sean nodded again and then said, "If that's all, gentlemen." He walked backward before turning away and heading back inside. Nathaniel waited for him to enter the unit before looking at Jake and then Andrew. "What's your take?" he asked. "This gives us all the time to rest and heal." "Then Aidan and I will go with him, assuming he's back on his feet by then," Jake replied. "Yeah, that's the thing," Nathaniel said under his breath, making sure they knew his words were meant only for their ears. "I want 2 other people to go with Sean, but you and Aidan, as you suggested, Jake, will go ahead of them undercover," Nathaniel instructed. Jake nodded, pondering on Nathaniel's ingenious plan. Nathaniel didn't want Samuel Cavalier to remember him as the one who took out one of his children, so he brought his grandson into the fold to handle the situation, letting Sean take care of Henry for him. Who says it can't work again? Perhaps they might just end up as backup. Nathaniel glanced at Andrew, noticing he was a bit distracted, checking his phone. Nathaniel's brows furrowed. "Are you with us, Andrew?" he asked, drawing the other man's attention. "My apologies, boss. I'm waiting for Jaden to call me back. I haven't been able to reach her again," Andrew said, sounding a bit worried. Jake met his gaze with a silent, questioning look, and Andrew shook his head. Jake's heart skipped a beat. "Would you like me to get our people over there to check in?" Jordan asked. Nathaniel gave him a sidelong glance. "Please do," he replied. Just then, Arya emerged from the unit with Anita, and Nathaniel said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, Jake, shall we?" Jake hesitated, unsure of Nathaniel's intentions. Andrew automatically followed, with Charles hurrying ahead to assist the ladies into the cart. "You'll be staying in the guest room in the main building under Dr. Hawthorne's watch until I can trust you to be on your own," Nathaniel said over his shoulder. The other guards chuckled despite the somber mood of the day. "Yes, boss," Jake replied, following Nathaniel. He saw this as an opportunity to speak with Andrew and get details about what happened when he called Jaden earlier. He silently hoped both Jaden and Giselle were all right. 2 weeks later, Aria was on her way to the concierge medical unit for Samuel Cavalier's second operation when Miss Jonas brought her a sealed envelope from the hospital. "Jake Darfield dropped it off first thing this morning," the older woman supplied. "Thank you, Miss Jonas," Aria replied. "Should I prepare a basket of snacks for you to take to the unit with you?" she asked just as she hurried away. "But we just had breakfast," Aria started to say, but the other woman wasn't listening. A minute later, Aria chuckled when she saw Miss Jonas returning with a small picnic basket. "I arranged 2 of these to be taken to the paddock for Mr. Liam, Mr. Owen, Mr. Sterndale, Miss Anna, Miss Dawn, and Mr. Blackwood. You can share this with the boss as well," she said. Aria laughed. Their house guests had been a real blessing. Not only were they excellent companions for each other, but they also made an effort to include Liam and Owen in their daily activities. This made it easier for Aria to rest and focus on helping the other doctors find ways to assist Samuel Cavalier. She was also able to manage online meetings with hospital staff and consultations, balancing work and home life while taking time to rest. Although she appreciated having her friends around, she knew they needed to return to their own lives. Nathaniel had mentioned that after Samuel Cavalier's surgery, Sean Cavalier would leave, and when he returned for his grandfather, their friends would be able to go home. Aria took this to mean that Sean would handle the feud between the families and their friends would be safe. She realized she had only a short time left with them, perhaps even less if Samuel Cavalier didn't recover. "Thank you, Miss Jonas. Just know that if these babies are too big to be born naturally, it will be your fault," she joked. The other woman smiled. "A little indulgence now and then won't hurt them," she replied fondly. "I've saved extra for their brothers too," she added. Aria smiled in appreciation. "I want you to know how much we appreciate you," Aria said, patting the other woman on the back of her hand. The woman nodded in acknowledgement. "Thank you, madam," she replied with pleasure. Outside the building, Charles was already waiting for Aria. "Good morning, Doctor," he greeted her as he stepped aside for her to enter the car. "A pleasant morning to you too, Charles," Aria replied, smiling up at the man before letting her eyes wander through the porch, which was now dusted with snow. Aria's lips stretched into a smile. She truly loved the snowy season and was happy she and the boys would be spending it with Nathaniel this year. Settling back on the seat, she lowered her gaze to the sealed envelope, thinking perhaps she could just hand it over to Sean Cavalier without opening it. But she figured she would have to interpret it for him at least, not wanting to admit to the fact that she was curious too to find out who Sean Cavalier's father was between Henry Cavalier and Samuel Cavalier. Charles, looking back at her through the rearview mirror, smiled to himself, noting how she kept brushing her hands over the envelope, as if she were expecting some furry baby to puff out of it. Aria let out a sigh and opened the envelope, taking out the paper. She scanned through the DNA test results, silently taking in the information. Test subject, Sean Cavalier. Alleged father, Henri Cavalier. Probability of paternity, 99%. The conclusive results left no doubt. Aria folded the paper back into the envelope, her mind already racing with the implications of this revelation. Would they tell Samuel Cavalier the truth? At the concierge medical unit, Jake sat in the corner with Nathaniel and Andrew. Sean Cavalier sat alone in another corner, watching as the doctors prepared Samuel Cavalier for his second surgery. Nathaniel had persuaded Dr. Williams to recommend Dr. Rowan that they keep Samuel in a coma to prevent him from learning about the loss of his son. With Dr. Sterling and Aria's support, Rowan had reluctantly agreed. Just as Anita began pushing the surgical tools trolley closer to Samuel's bed, Aria walked in. All the seated men, including Sean Cavalier, stood up. "Good morning, Doctor," the greetings echoed in the expansive room. "Good morning, everyone," Arya responded, hurrying towards Nathaniel with a warm smile. Nathaniel had left the house earlier after a morning walk with his friends and sons, which had become a routine in recent days. He would wake up early, get the boys ready, and then head downstairs to wake Ethan and Alex. Sometimes Anna, Dawn, and others would join them for early morning walks or jogs through the estate gardens before they returned for breakfast and began their day. Nathaniel found this routine gave him a chance to spend time with his friends, play host, and prepare them for a pleasant day. While he attended online meetings and managed his schedule, his friends handled their needs, with the house staff at their service. Nathaniel opened his arms for Arya as she reached him, kissing her on the lips and smiling at her as she drew back. She patted Andrew on the chest and then checked Jake's neck as if feeling for a fever. "I'm fine, Dr. Hawthorne," Jake said with a fond smile. "Good, that's all I like to hear. Although I don't trust your judgment in the matter," she replied, making him chuckle despite himself. "Where are Aiden and Anton?" Arya asked, glancing toward the beds that had been Aiden and Anton's corner for the past few days. "We are right here, Dr. Hawthorne," Anton replied, with one hand raised as he walked in with Aiden on his trail. "Good morning, Doctor. We just went for some fresh air," Aiden said, his deep voice reflecting his fondness. 2 weeks ago, he had been sure he was doomed when Sean had mercilessly killed his father, leaving them without any leverage. He remembered clutching his pendant cross as he faded into darkness, only to wake up in a hospital bed with Dr. Hawthorne's kind face looking down at him, urging him to stay awake. Tears had streamed down his face at the depth of her concern, and he had seen the Hawthorne guards surrounding his bed. He had never felt so loved and wanted in his entire life. He'd figured it was a life worth fighting for. Later, Noria came, crying and begging him not to die. "Damn it, Noria, I'm trying to sleep," he had grumbled weakly. She had laughed and peppered kisses all over his face. Aiden smiled at the memory. The little monkey had snuck in to watch over him every night after then. He was sure she thought she was being clever and sneaky. He was certain the guards knew she was there. His heart ached with emotion at the thought of being part of such a family, one bound not by blood but by something far stronger. "I'm glad to see you boys up and about," Dr. Hawthorne said as she approached them, giving them both a side hug. "Let's try to take it slow, though," she added before heading towards Sean Cavalier. "Yes, ma'am," Anton and Aiden responded. Nathaniel noticed Sean tense when Arya pulled an envelope from her doctor's robe pocket. Nathaniel exchanged a look with Andrew, certain the envelope contained the DNA test results. Jake watched as Sean pulled the result from the envelope and glanced down at it. The look of resignation that followed confirmed what Jake had suspected. The results must show that Henri Cavalier was Sean's father. What a family! And Jake thought he had issues. He was eager for Dr. Hawthorne to work her magic on Samuel Cavalier so they could wake him up and move forward. Jake intended to make a brief stop in Moscow to track Jaden's movements and investigate her and Giselle's whereabouts. So far, all they knew was that the two were missing without a trace. Jake was determined to find them, leaving no stone unturned. But before he left, he needed to consult with Mr. Hill about Christine and seek his advice. He couldn't bear the thought of Christine with anyone else, and it made him realize he wanted her for himself, despite his complicated history with Giselle. As Dr. Hawthorne approached the other doctors to prepare for the surgery, Andrew's phone rang. Jake tensed as Andrew excused himself. Not wanting to draw attention, Jake hesitated. But after about a minute, Nathaniel, sensing Jake's agitation, said, "Follow him, Jake. You're not helping me right now." Jake sighed and replied, "Sorry, boss," before quickly stepping outside, only to overhear Andrew asking, "So who is pregnant, Jaden or Giselle?" Jake felt as though he had been punched in the gut.